Welcome to DAX Machina, with your hosts, Naomi Finn, Steve Wildman Monrotis, and D.A. Roberts. Join us as we explore writing, books, authors, and all things horror. We will delve into the sightings, reports, encounters, and tales of monsters. We will also explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with others in the horror genre. We will investigate the possibilities that monsters may not be safely locked away in the pages of books. They might just walk among us even now. Grab some popcorn and lock the doors. It's going to be a creepy journey. Welcome to DAX Machina.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of DAX Machina. Joining me tonight is my good friend Anthony Canatella and my brother from another mother, Steve Wildman Monrotis. And we have a very special guest tonight, Doug Hajicek, producer of MonsterQuest. He's done so many different documentaries. He was one of the ones that pioneered the camera technology that helped us catch footage of a giant squid. Doug has been in the entertainment industry for the last 35 years, Doug?
Yep.
He has done so much in not only in cryptids, but his involvement in other projects as well is just amazing. It's a long list, and I put his bio in the description of the show. You guys can read the bio, but I'm just super excited about having you here tonight, sir. And I really want to thank you for coming on the show. If you, for those of you those people in the audience who may not be familiar with your work, would you mind taking a moment and just give you a brief introduction and say hello to everybody?
Yeah, hello. I don't know. God, I don't even know where to start, but back in the 80s, I started doing wildlife photography and then moved into doing a wildlife show producing, which is weird because it's still on the air to this day. It's now the second generation host. So that show's been on the air for about 35 years. So my first show's still going.
That's awesome.
And then moved into what I thought were greener pastures, working for Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, doing things like The Man That Walks with Bears for Animal Planet. Then we had Mark Hamill narrate. And then just kind of keep working. And then I was up in the Arctic and found footprints. And, we were just in the middle of nowhere. 6-hour floatplane ride, north. To give you an example of how far north we were. Up on Selwyn Lake, and we were just up there doing a show. We were trying to get footage of a giant lake trout. These lake trout kind of live in these sterile waters, and they can get out of their niche and maybe grow and live for 100 years, maybe even 150 years old. And we were trying to get footage of one of these fish, and we had to take a pee break. So we went to shore, and there's footprints coming out of the water, probably from another island or whatever, and came up on the sand and the pea gravel and then into the moss. But there was a footprint, a really deep footprint, right in front of the tree trunk of a stunted black spruce tree. And there was a footprint behind it. And of course, it didn't take long to figure out whatever it was stepped over the tree.
Ooh. And
at that point, I was wanting answers. What am I looking at? We went through the little tree stand. There's not many trees that grow up there, very few. Get past that little outcropping of trees, and there are the footprints going off into the horizon, and deep and far apart, straight line, like you see in these straight line footprints.
Mm-hmm.
I get back home, and I'm like, I can't get out of my head. I don't suddenly care about beavers now. And bears and whatever. I'm just thinking something made those prints, something real and something heavy and big and tall. So I come back and I got a hold of Matt Moneymaker finally, and we hooked up, got along good, and he just kind of educated me. And then Legend Meets Science was born. Took forever to get that sold because these network execs just think Bigfoot's a bunch of hooey. Apparently I met an executive finally that said, hey, let's do it at Discovery. And we did it. And then I did Mysterious Encounters Have you ever heard of Mysterious Encounters, anybody?
Yes, I have.
I think I have. I think I've seen it.
Don't lie to me.
No,
I've actually heard of
if
this.
If there's
No.
anything cryptid related that can be found online or on any of the subscription services, I've watched it.
Well, nobody knew about it, but it was probably, I don't know how big their audiences were, but it was on the Outdoor Life Network, OLN.
Mhm.
I think it's based up in Canada. And so we had this series that was just on Bigfoot. And of course, I realized, hey, this is the first time anybody's ever done a series on Bigfoot. Very similar to Finding Bigfoot. I think we had a lot more technology back then, though, on board because we worked so hard in getting it. I mean, we had thermal cameras back in the day when they cost $100,000. We had helium balloons with thermal cameras on gimbals. We had drones, early drones in the 90s, that were huge and expensive. If you'd have crashed one of those, it'd been, $100,000. But we were doing a lot of really high-end technology things. And then I went on to do Giganto the Real King Kong for history. It set new records on History Channel. And they literally called me up. The executive producer I was working with called me up like the next day to give me the ratings. And he goes, God, can you do more of these? This was just amazing. That's awesome. And I went, it took about 2 seconds. I went, yeah.
Absolutely, I could do more.
Yeah, of course. And then we came up with the name MonsterQuest. And then I remember going to Kinko's because they were in a rush for me to sign the contract. And next thing you know, I was doing my dream job now on a network where it would be seen by millions and millions of people versus OLN. Mm-hmm. And I would have the chance and have all of the science and forensics and travel and all the things that I'm curious about, be able to do them. And that's kind of what happened. And so I really don't, I always tell people I never really was a producer, but more of a guy that was curious, versus just somebody, oh, hey, do you want to do a show on monsters? And they go, yeah, okay. That wasn't me. I was like, I was so curious about everything I did, which is why I think people appreciate it nowadays. Where some of the other shows are done by producers that they couldn't care less about the topic. They're just trying to make a buck.
Mm-hmm. You get the interest in it shows.
Yeah, they could have said, you want to do this for free? I would have been, oh, hell yeah. I would have answered them just as quick, But, and that's kind of it. And MonsterQuest ran for, 4 seasons. But many of the seasons were double seasons. So I had to do 26 one-hour shows. If you can imagine doing 26 one-hour documentaries on animals that don't exist, right? It's a challenge. It is a challenge. But I was so curious in most cases and really tuned into the technology and could come up with technology that, it was just a blast doing it. But it was kind of a burnout job. I mean, I remember the schedule was something like this. You go to bed at 4 a.m. because you've been working till 4 a.m, and you get up at 8 o'clock or earlier, and then you spend until the sun comes up the next day again and again, and it just goes on and on. It never ended, It was grueling.
Sounds like the military.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's like the
MonsterQuest was
like
such
the military.
It was grueling. There were times I remember having somebody find me passed out on, editing or something. Because you remember producing a show like that wasn't just going out and filming it and writing it and coming up with all the technology and getting a hold of all the people and the witnesses and the experts. It was also, you had to bring back the footage. I had to have everything edited on time. And I did most of the story editing. So I would edit on a computer, everything. So it was pretty polished. And the offline was, in most cases, you wouldn't even know the difference between one of my edits and what aired on TV. Maybe it would have placeholders for the animation. I would say animation here, or things like that. But, and we would have a guy do the voiceover. So it wasn't Stan Bernard that did our voiceovers. It was somebody else. But other than that, I mean, I had to get those shows done, and you'd have to sometimes do edit sessions. Oh my God. I don't know how many 48-hour edit sessions I did. 48 hours in a row without stopping.
That's a lot of hours.
It was grueling. Yeah, it was. I mean, you get dizzy, and so I'm so used to that lifestyle, I never got out of it. So after I, got out of that and kind of retired, I was still working. I was still working and getting 2 hours sleep, 3 hours sleep every night. Last night I went to bed at 7:00, got up at 8:30. So I was on the phone doing a conference call with people in Britain on the big cat mystery doc that we're working on, the new one. And I don't think anything of it. And the sun's out, birds are singing. I took a nap for an hour and a half today. That's it. Been going ever since.
I don't know how you do it.
Derek Buckles from the audience had a question. He says, for every hour seen on TV, how many hours of research, filming, and et cetera were done?
Oh, my God. 200, 300.
Oh my God. Wow.
And then the work, the editing. And then after I would get done, I would have to go to online editing, and that would be another maybe 25, 30 hours of editing. And I would spend 48 hours probably editing a show because it have to be written and then edited. And then I would send it off to my executive producers. They maybe come back with a couple of little changes. And then I'd re-edit again. And oh my God. And sometimes you'd be under deadlines. That would be just like, you just knew there's no way you could make it, but you still made it. So.
Mm-hmm.
So, DA, I reconsidered. When your stuff makes it to television, count me out.
We had a comment from Still Crazy Chris. She says, Doug, you did a great job with all your work. I still love all your work. Thank you so much.
Oh, great.
Well, it's everything you've done is just so much appreciated. MonsterQuest,
Yes.
Like I said, I've probably watched that series 4 times. I've got to watch it, and then like a week later, I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to start watching MonsterQuest again.
Well, they kind of hold because there's a lot more science in these things than people realize. I mean, we really do put a lot of science. Even I'm riveted to them sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, yeah, well, that's right. We did that.
So much research has gone into those. I mean, there's so much detail in the MonsterQuest, but there's still one episode that just stands out in my mind, and it is my all-time favorite episode. And I don't know which season or which number it was, but it was the Snell Grove Lake cabin.
Oh yeah.
That episode was so awesome.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was the craziest one I've ever seen.
It happened all organically. That whole thing happened very organically. I'd been going to this cabin for 20 years. Originally found it when I went up to do a story called Luxury in the Wilderness. And it was on the solar-powered cabin in the middle of nowhere that had a running, you could take a hot shower because you had pump water out of the lake, solar-powered motor, pump water out of the lake to a propane tank that would burn, fire up the hot water. So you could just sit in there for an hour if you wanted. Take a hot shower. It didn't have a toilet in there, but they have an outhouse, but you had a sink. You had lights, solar-powered lights. And when you realize where you are, it's an hour and a half, 2-hour float plane ride. And you get dropped off, and you can hear your own heartbeat. There's nothing. Never ever seen. There's no way you could ever see another person there. And so I went up there and did a story on that for the I think it was an NBC affiliate, and then I just kept going back because I loved it so much. And so the fishing was amazing, and so we just kept going up there. But there were a couple of things that would happen up there that really puzzled me. I brought 2 guys that worked for me up there one time, and we met for lunch like we did every day to cook our walleye up, right, to make a shore lunch on the keepers. And so they go, yeah, we had a great day fishing, but something really weird happened to us. I'd say, what? And they said a big log came tumbling out of the forest and landed by our boat. And I'm like, okay, tell me this again. Well, we were 30 yards from shore, and a big log came flying out of the forest, and we all determined, well, it must have been under tension from a storm and bent, and the wind blew, and it got released like a catapult, right? And so that was the end of it. You don't think about it. And then I was up there one time with my best friend of my son. I brought him up there for his graduation present. It was kind of what I call a Dakota gift. It was a gift for me more than him.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that into fishing or any of that outdoor stuff, but I thought, I think you're ripe to have this have an effect on you. So I brought him up there, and we're in a boat, and we were doing what we called our walleye jamboree. Every caster reeling in a walleye, and it's right, kind of at after supper. The sun is beautiful and coming down, and all of a sudden we hear singing from the shore, and it sounded very much like your DA. Once again, I just learned this term. How do you call it? Calming. And it was this very ancient like singing we were hearing from the shore, and yet it was kind of in words, but kind of not in words, and it was kind of operatic, but it was very loud and very clear. And we listened to it for 20 minutes. And I remember my son, he looked at me and he goes, "Dad, I finally understand why you come up here so much." And I went, "Ooh, that means a lot to me." It hit him, the whole thing hit him. We're up there because
the light went off, right? The light went off.
Right, the light bulb went off. It was a mysterious thing that apparently captured his imagination. I'll tell you why. He went on to become a doctor of audio. He's got a doctorate degree in audio. He came home from that trip, and I never heard the words out of his mouth ever before. "Can I help you set the table?" And I went, "Ooh, what's the deal here?" And then he's like, "I'm going to, I've got a bunch of chores listed out I'm going to do tomorrow." And I went, "Ooh."
What's going on?
And then it was like a month later, he goes, "I got a job in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to work in the college in the kitchen to pay for my college tuition. They're going to trade me my tuition for this job." And I went, "Ooh." Suddenly he went off to college, and he never came back till he came back with his degree. And now he's, we talk all the time, and he's interested in the Bigfoot mystery, and we do talk about it quite a bit, especially lately. He's actually attended Zoo Book a number of times. If you guys know what Zoo Book is. It's all the scientists. The scientists all get together, and I get together with them too, and on every other Thursday, and we all meet and just discuss scientific things with the Bigfoot mystery. And he's been a part of that, and it's really interesting. He had many interesting things to add because he's so highly educated, and he's such a brilliant kid, a brilliant 4-year-old kid. It's just that trip had a huge effect on him, just huge.
Lexington 73300 had a question for you. Yeah. I guess he was going on your statement about MonsterQuest earlier. He says, "Don't exist or not proven to exist. And do you think more reality TV shows like Finding Bigfoot do more harm than good overall?"
No, I don't think they do any harm. Like I said earlier, I'm not sure that, the producers didn't get interested probably in the topic organically. So they're more like, they have to produce a show. And so that's going to affect some things. And certainly Cliff has spoken out on those, you know what I mean? Cliff and Bobo have spoken out on those things. Mm-hmm. And I know Matt, obviously I've worked with Matt for years. I know Bobo really well, know Cliff well. And that show does a ton for the alone. It does just take the witnesses, just the witnesses. There's so much good that happens just out of that, let alone the other parts. But it's also helped, make the topic popular. And if something gets popular, it's going to get attention. Why do you think we meet every Thursday with all these scientists? Because they've had an experience usually, and they were camping. And because of shows like MonsterQuest, Finding Bigfoot, and so on, they at least understood the connection that maybe what they experienced was Bigfoot related. Yeah. And they start researching and they start realizing, oh, maybe I'm going to go out in the field. And then they have another experience and another one. And maybe some of them have had sightings. I'm not going to say. And all of a sudden, you've got more scientists, getting involved. And Amy Boo came up with this concept, of recruiting scientists, and it's kind of just generated its own. And I've brought a couple of people into it, and everybody does that. And it's the most amazing thing ever, So, no. So the answer is yes.
Go down the rabbit hole.
Far more good than harm.
I want to say a quick thank you to Lene Perkins for the super chat. Thank you, Lene. You are awesome. Something I wanted to bring up, and it was something you and I discussed on the phone the other day. You brought up something that I had never really considered before, which was the connection between like Inuit and Mongolian throat singing and the Bigfoot vocalizations, which I find incredibly fascinating. Would you want to talk about that topic a little bit?
Yeah. One day I sent David Ellis, Mongolian, or it was actually, I think, just Arctic, because this throat singing is something that is being practiced and certainly was practiced all through Asia and North America and the Arctic. Obviously, if there was a land bridge migration, it was taken over. And one day we were wondering, I was sitting there wondering, I wonder why they're doing this throat singing, because it reminds me of some of the Bigfoot calls I hear. And then it kind of hit me, and I thought, well, maybe they observed it, God knows, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, certain people, and they were trying to mimic Bigfoot calls or Bigfoot vocalizations. So I thought, just for fun, I'm going to have David Ellis and some of these others that do spectrograph analysis compare throat singing to some of the recordings that have been recorded. Well, guess what? It was the closest match that they have ever seen to like even some of the Moorhead tapes is this throat singing. And what throat singing is, I can't really explain it because I'm not really sure anybody really understands how they're doing it. But they're using vocal folds versus the vocal cords. They're using their entire throat as basically a flute by the muscles.
Like a resonance chamber.
Yeah, resonance chamber, but they're controlling it. I recommend everybody go to YouTube and look up Mongolian throat singing or just throat singing. And, don't just listen to one video. Listen to a number of them. And then go listen to some of the entire, Moorhead tapes. Or some of the other things, and there's some qualities that are really different, and so what they're finding basically with Bigfoot calls, it's mathematical. There's a lower form and structure that's missing in Bigfoot calls. It's just missing. There's something they're doing that causes a whole section on the graph to be missing, and so
is it outside our hearing range?
No. Very much inside. It's very hard to explain without animation. And in Legend Meets Science too, this is all going to be animated. We're going to show how literally this is a math problem.
So there's just gaps in the spectrum? Is that pretty much?
There's gaps, yes. There's gaps mathematically. And so if you take these three bottom numbers, they should add to this top number. Well, with Bigfoot stuff, it don't work. The math never works. And it's missing. There's part of the math is just missing. And so it's more important than you would think, because you take a voice actor, for instance, they can't duplicate it. Somebody who really should be able to, can mimic damn near everything, cannot do it. And you can prove it, with these spectrograms. And we're going to be doing things like in Legend Meets Science too. I've got some unique things planned where we're going to be putting endoscopic scopes. You basically run it through your nostril, a camera, snake it through your skull and your sinuses, and then back down the back of your throat. And I let this ENT that's going to be in the show do it to me. It's one of the most painful things I've ever experienced, by the way.
But it was.
It was. It actually it was the most. It was so alien and so painful.
It's like getting intubated.
because you're feeling
Seriously.
this thing. It feels like a big cockroach crawling
Yeah.
through your. It's
Yeah.
horrible. It's actually nightmarish. And so I found this guy also that has the world's lowest voice. He can get his voice below infrasound, right? He also has the world's highest voice. So he can do things with his throat, high and low that have never been seen before in humans. And I told him what I'm going to do to him. And he said, sure, that sounds great, whatever. And I told him it's fun, whatever.
That'll be fun.
I'm like, well, why are you willing to let me do all this stuff to you? And you're willing to participate in all these experiments and forensics. He said, well, because I saw Bigfoot. And I went, you're kidding me. There's no way. He goes, oh, yeah, way. He said, not only did we see one, we watched it for quite a while. They were up fishing on a railroad trestle, and there was one below them catching fish, and they got to watch it for a long time. So he knows they're real.
See, if I saw Bigfoot, I'd be able to make the highest sounds too, as I'm running away screaming.
I want you to think about the coincidence here, though. Think about the coincidence. It's beyond a coincidence.
Exactly. Right.
That this guy's willing to participate in some groundbreaking Bigfoot experiments, right? So we can all understand if sound better and some of their vocal range better.
Sure.
And yet he had a sighting, and then we got together.
Yeah, so happened to be you find this guy that had a sighting.
Exactly.
Right.
And he's in the world record books. I mean, he's got the highest and lowest voice.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and resonance is so fascinating anyway. I mean, even people we've talked about Nikola Tesla before on the broadcast. He had an interest in resonance, and allegedly was able to find resonant frequencies of buildings and things like that. He almost brought a bridge down with a pocket-sized oscillator. According to story. And so and you got the opera singers that have found the resonant frequency of glasses, and they'll scream, and it'll shatter a glass.
Right.
The stuff's been proven, and it's really going to be interesting to see the science behind it. I would love to see it. As a registered nurse, I've placed many NG tubes, so I've stuck tubes down people's noses into their stomachs and things like that, and I can testify that it's pretty miserable for the participant.
Well, normally they spray an anesthetic.
Yep, a lidocaine.
Well, I was just lucky enough to have the guy do it during COVID, and he goes, I can't spray any Novocaine in your nose for this, or you suck it up in yours. I'm like, well, why not? He goes, because it's a new COVID rule. And I went, whatever, do it.
Oh,
that was not a good That was not good.
Yeah, I can imagine that was a fairly unpleasant experience.
That was not good. No.
Well, nothing but respect for you, Doug. You're manlier than I'll ever be.
Yeah, I still have nightmares about it because it hurts so much.
You do.
Well, it's just because you're feeling things you would never ever feel.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
crawling through your skull while you're awake.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they're asking you questions on top of it.
No, he's just saying, no, a little more. We're getting there. A little more.
Right. How you feeling? Oh, let's go.
Yeah, from your point of view, it's like he's on the table. Like, I'm almost got it. Just hold on.
So, but what's cool is I'm now, because of you, DA, because of meeting you and your idea on the singing, which I'm going to have you explain a little bit more, because I know nothing about it, because it's the first I ever heard about it, but I want to tell a story. So DA suggested there was this very ancient, it's Norwegian, correct?
Yes, it's Norwegian.
Norwegian type of singing, similar, actually kind of their own evolved throat singing in some ways, but different. But still, it was developed to carry a long distance, probably in the mountains and the hills. Okay, so he tells me this, and I go and look at it, and I'm like, dang, that matches exactly the singing that we heard. And so I send it off to the guy that was in the boat with me, and I haven't sent it to my son yet. I'm going to send it to Josh yet. And he comes back and he writes, I could pull the email up. He just said, that is exactly what we heard. So you may be onto something. So that was, I thank you for that. And I guarantee we'll incorporate a bunch of science around that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Put me in as a footnote somewhere. Cool. I'd be awesome.
That's cool, man.
But it's just the dot connections, and it's why I even do podcasts and do things because you need to meet people. You need to connect dots. We all have something to add. We all have part of this story. Anthony, when you were telling me your power line story of your sighting with this thing leaning on the power line, well, that just reinforces some other things that I'm working on, right? It just reinforces it. And so it's all very important. Every one of our stories, experiences,
everything connects.
It all connects.
Everything connects,
and without connecting it, and without meeting everybody and, talking with people and hearing things firsthand, we're all losing. So.
Right. That's something we've always stressed on this show is no matter the encounter story, no matter whether it's people experiencing what some researchers refer to as the woo, no matter what the story is, there's something in every story we can learn from. Right. And when we start seeing patterns emerge, that's when we can start predicting behaviors. Yeah. So every story has got the potential to add to the data that we've collected.
Well, you think about it. Let's just say that this thing you suggested to me, this type of singing. And how do you pronounce it again?
It's called culning.
Culning. Spell it for everybody, because
Kulning.
There you go. And that could, let's just say no one's tried that in the field. Right. So you bring recordings of this, and all of a sudden 5 Bigfoots come to you.
Yeah,
and suddenly the whole mystery is solved because 2 guys talked.
Exactly.
And see, when I discovered culning, it had nothing to do with researching Bigfoot.
Okay.
I'm into history. I'm always wanting to learn more about history, and this dates back to the Vikings. They would call ship to ship with it. They would call their cattle back from deeper in the fjords, and it's this really melodic, beautiful singing, but it's not really a language. And every group had their own specific call, and you could tell who was calling by the call. And culning is just really hauntingly beautiful, but at the same time, it's not a spoken language. It's just this different pitch of melodies and combination of sounds that they would use to identify themselves over long distances.
Well, obviously, I think we talked about it before the show, DA, but I was in the boat up at Snell Grove many years before the Snell Grove incident. I was there with my son for graduation. He's now in his 40s, to give an example how long ago that was. And it was life-changing for him because we're hearing this singing in the middle of nowhere that sounded just like this culning. And it was very female. It sounded very operatic, but yet kind of a language we couldn't understand. It was just bizarre. I'd never heard anything like it. And it was loud and clear. And it sounded like maybe somebody's celebrating, or a creature celebrating the beautiful weather that we were having that particular day. I mean, it sounded happy. And my son came back from that trip, and it was life-changing for him. He just became a whole different person, and then went on to get his degree and then his doctorate in audio.
Nice.
That's amazing.
That is.
So it's pretty
crazy.
Cool. So maybe
just by that one little incident. That one little incident. Taking him there changed him like that.
Well,
that's awesome.
That brings up something that I want to say. If you're out there in the audience and you're just interested in Bigfoot or mildly or really into it, you're doing so because you're far more intelligent than the average person. Because you're curious about your world, you're curious about the environment. You're curious about the forest. You have a curiosity, and it's that curiosity that we need to instill more in our kids. These mysteries like Bigfoot is so good for children, kids, teens to get involved because it lets them know the whole world isn't figured out. It isn't, that's something they can contribute to.
Right.
And there's so many areas of things we can contribute to in science and just, oh my God. There are billions of things that the average person who just has an interest could help and aid science and mysteries that we don't have no clue on,
Exactly.
I agree.
We do not know all Yeah, we haven't discovered all the mysteries of this planet.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
if you look at just zoology, in the field of zoology, they're discovering new species all the time. Granted, most of them are some form of insect, but every once in a while we find something big. Like in the late '90s, they found the billy ape. It was a species of gorilla we didn't even know existed, but the locals had been saying it had been there for a long time. But
I remember talking to Carl Annan 20 years before they discovered that or actually verified it. Mm-hmm. Where it was just a sighting.
Right.
And he was one of the people that basically brought this to the world, the topic. But, people thought he was nuts too.
What was the legend of the billy ape that Michael Crichton tapped for the movie Congo? Yeah. For the book Congo, he was talking about the gray, mysterious, violent apes. The locals referred to them as lion killers. Then when they actually got trail camera footage of them, they're like, "Holy crap, these things do exist!" Well, yeah, they'd been saying for years that they existed, but that's just a great example of something that was a cryptid is now real.
Yeah, but Carl was just a citizen that was just he wasn't like some accredited scientist. He was just basically a tourist.
Yeah. Well, and I think something that people need to get perspective on, our audience has the right perspective because, as you put it, they're a little more intelligent than most. But there is a group of people that have it in their head that a cryptid is fantasy, that it's hobbits and trolls and purple-headed men and all this other stuff. A cryptid is just something that hasn't been scientifically confirmed yet. And one of the Facebook groups that I follow posted something that was very telling yesterday. And it was showing 15 examples of what previously were considered cryptids. Right. And it showed a kangaroo and a coelacanth and some of these other things. It's like, ever since I was a kid, I could pick a kangaroo out of a children's book. But to think that, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, a kangaroo was a cryptid.
The mountain gorilla was a cryptid.
Like there's this big ass rabbit with a giant tail, and it punches you. And they're like
Tyrannosaurus rabbit.
Yeah, dude, lay off the beer. But it exists. It's now not a cryptid, and there's going to be a time when the Bigfoot and the Dogman and the insert cryptid here are going to be validated. Or we're going to understand why people are seeing what they really like.
It's like when I was doing the DA knows what I'm talking about. I don't know if I told you, Steve, doing a thing on special operations. Okay. And I got in touch with one of the guys, and the guy, one of the former special op guys. And he said, you realize just what they did alone when they found that one owl that existed.
The spotted owl.
They shut down the wood, the cutting. Right. What they did with that,
pretty much died.
They shut down the wood. I mean, they went crazy. Now, he made a good point. You have these beings running around North America, Florida, all over the place. You can imagine the impact on the economy alone. Look what COVID did. Just imagine the impact alone if they come out with it. The government says, hey, by the way, we have a new species that's running around. It's half man. Because it would be mass chaos because you'll have scholars come forward and be like, well, that's not, no, Adam and Eve, and that's where we come, and this is from this. Well, he made a good point. He says it would just be craziness. What would happen? Everybody's outlook, biblically, everything. It's nuts. And Bringo exists. Doug knows it's there. That's why we have this. It's you go down that rabbit hole.
Science isn't science if we're not challenging.
People believe. Exactly.
Well, I think the key is the curiosity and not blowing off something that happened. Because we're all here to learn, no doubt. We're all here to learn. But not many people want to learn. But the people interested in the Bigfoot industry, as a general rule, are more intelligent. Where some somebody not in the know might think, oh, those people are always no. We're the intelligent ones. We're the ones that are curious. We're the ones questioning things. We're not accepting the status quo on everything. We're not just a bunch of sheep. So Bigfoot researchers are not sheep.
Right.
Yes.
The beautiful thing about it is even if we're completely proven wrong, all I've done is spend a lot of time in the woods that I thoroughly enjoyed.
No, but think of all the other things, Dee, that you've learned because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from math to ecology to this to that to history,
track identification, how ecosystems work,
branches out all over. And so you're not wasting your time because you're learning about so many things. We're just talking about sound frequencies. How many people do you think tonight came home from work and started talking about cool sound frequencies?
Probably not many.
Not many.
Yeah, right.
Well, we were because we're interested in the Bigfoot mystery.
Well, and you touched on something significant there, Doug. Just a moment ago, you said, that people are tapping into this knowledge and they're spreading it to other areas. I mean, think of eDNA, environmental DNA. It started being used by some of these cryptid researchers to try to, finally get some genetic information that confirms that, an unknown creature was in a certain location. eDNA is being used for forensics now. They use some eDNA when the I'm going to pronounce the name incorrectly. Gabby Petrino, the young lady who was allegedly murdered by her fiance.
Oh.
I probably butchered her name, and I apologize to the family.
Petito. Gabby Petito.
I should have asked you because it was Florida.
That's right here by me. Yeah.
They were using some eDNA to try to help locate where he had been. And I mean, it all has a use.
At some point, there will be no crimes that will be gotten away with because they're getting full genomes off a few skin cells now, and those skin cells can be up to 50 years old. I've got friends that just solved a crime on a girl who was killed 50 years ago, and they accused her boyfriend of killing her. And apparently, his story was he was pistol whipped, and they couldn't solve the crime, but they kind of blamed him, even though he didn't get prosecuted. But could you imagine how he felt all those years, everybody looking at him? Finally, this buddy of mine, they took the DNA from a 50-year-old bra, had been in storage, got a few skin cells off it, found the guy whose skin cells it was in the gen bank, relatives in the gen bank. And then they go to those relatives and you knock on the door and say, do you happen to have maybe a crazy uncle? Somebody that you just think's a little weird? And they go, yeah, well, whatever. And they go over there and they're sure enough, that's the guy who, and God knows how many other people he may have killed. But they made an arrest. That's the kind of things that are going on now. And it's all about funding. So a lot of crimes aren't solved only because they don't have the funding. The technology is now there.
Well, one of the things
is getting cheaper.
Yeah, it's getting more cost effective. Well, one of the things I ran into when I was in law enforcement, and this is something that people that their only real experience with law enforcement is watching CSI or one of the shows like that. Right. We don't get DNA results back within hours. The crime lab is usually so backlogged, you're lucky to get it within a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk to detectives that they'll have, file drawers of cold cases, and it's not from lack of anything but funding, and obviously time. Well, if you had more staff, we need a lot more police.
I definitely agree.
We are police. When I heard this, defund the police, I'm like, oh my God, they need like 20 times more than they already had, because I've been in the know on.
There you go.
I can't read it, but
it says, in loving memory of all our nation's fallen officers, may they live on forever. I wear that every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service too, DA.
I've stood in the rain holding a salute too many times as a casket.
Yeah,
by to take it lightly.
But defund the police. it's almost humorous. My of course DA
It's
was law
beyond.
enforcement. My brother's a police officer. Defund the police. Oh, okay, great. That's going to give you $1.25. All right.
They needed 20 times more help before
Exactly.
all that happened, let alone less. I mean, when I have meetings with detectives, because I'm working on this crime show, it's like scary to think how backlogged they are only because of funding.
Yeah. Well, like you said, with the technology getting better and getting cheaper, we're going to start seeing a lot more of these older cases processed successfully.
Yep.
And, it's going to give us a much brighter future toward to not only sequencing, but documenting the DNA of Bigfoot when we've got good samples that can be sampled from. So I think the future is very bright when it comes to being able to solve the mysteries once and for all.
Yeah, and people have to realize too, every time they, like they do a heritage DNA, where they're trying to find their heritage, they're doing a huge favor actually in helping solve crimes, because this gen bank is growing, and using artificial intelligence now in this growing gen bank, they can find people. I mean, leaving just a tiny, a skin cell behind that murdered somebody. The information's there in these file cabinets all over America. And when DNA finally gets down to copy machine level, where we all can own them, or the police can actually have their own DNA processor right there and connected to the gen banks, and that's coming, DA. I mean, at some point that's going to happen, and probably in the next, I'm thinking 5 years, it's going to start. At least some police departments are going to have their own DNA processing. It's going to be amazing. People are not going to be getting away with these murders like they do now.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
Because I think the amount of serial killers out there is probably exponential right now.
I read one time there was a statistics that said, I think at any given time, there's more than a dozen serial killers operating in the United States.
Oh, God, yeah, I would think.
And a lot of them we don't even know about.
Yep.
Because the ones we've caught are the ones that basically allowed their kills to be known.
Right. Yeah. If you can imagine a guy that got away with a crime 50 years ago, a murder, and suddenly getting that knock on the door and seeing detectives waiting for him, it's got to be a grand moment for those detectives, and a real crappy moment for that guy.
The guy opens the door and he sees the police there. He's like, son of a.
Yeah. But could you imagine a guy getting away with it that long and thinking,
he was scot-free?
Oh, at that point.
Well, he had an entire life that he wasn't entitled to have.
Hey, buddy, you made it back. And we lost him.
And he's gone.
There he is. So what do you guys want to talk about here? We've talked about crime, probably too much.
Yeah, well, we get on tangents on this show all the time because it does connect. I mean, we're talking about the crime statistics with DNA, and that fits right into the DNA that's been collected with Bigfoot and other cryptids along the way, and it's just a very fascinating field, and it's something I hope we have a chance to learn more. I mean, and again, what you were saying about people that are into this topic, into cryptids, questioning things that most people just don't even normally think about. Like here in this show alone, we've talked about resonance frequencies and harmonics and DNA. I mean, it's the wave of the future. And I think it's really, really a good way to go. I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I've observed, and this is from years of deer hunting, I've seen both hogs and deer react to the IR cameras on trail cams.
Yep.
And we know that a lot of cases that they get, a lot of the images that they suspect are Sasquatch on trail cams is basically something hairy reaching around and then the camera goes offline.
Yep. We've gotten those. I've gotten those too. They're frustrating.
Do you think they're reacting to the smell of the plastic, or they can see the IR spectrum?
Yep. Keep going.
Petroleum.
It's everything. It's everything.
I was thinking of building my own with a wooden case and low light camera, not IR cameras.
there's a number of ways around it, and I'm experimenting. Other people are experimenting. But remember, an experiment's got to go on for a lot of years. It can't really, you can't just like spend a summer putting a few things up and go, well, it didn't work. It's not the way to do it. You got to keep trying something, but miniaturizing things, descending things, camouflaging things are certainly going to up your odds.
Well, they make cameras now. They refer to them as lipstick cameras, and they're tiny. I mean, you can hide that, pretty successfully just about anywhere. But I would still be concerned about possibly the smell of the petroleum in the plastics.
I mean, there's things you can do. You could, for instance, put the camera in a bag full of baking soda on, leave it in there for a month and absorb, and use cover scents. A lot of people don't do, of other animals. Bearing things, try different angles, really low angle, like ground level camera systems has not been done much.
High oblique angles really hasn't been done either.
Les Stroud did that in one of his shows, didn't he? He put it in a fake.
That was a camera I built. That was the camera I built for Les.
That's funny.
Awesome.
Okay, cool.
One thing I had thought of is think about what they're doing with using hemp as a construction material. They've built an entire airplane out of hemp fibers. Basically fiberglass made out of hemp. Make a hemp box,
and that's all.
Oh, we've talked about that. We've talked
all
about
natural,
like CNC milling and camera housings. A lot of these ideas are on the table. I don't know if they're public, but I just, there's only so much time in a day. And we keep trying new things. I was going to say we had an owl attack one of our cameras recently because we disguised the camera as it looks like a squirrel. Well, fooled an owl.
Yeah, a stationary squirrel is lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the owl came at it with its talons out, and we got cool footage.
We got some good footage of the demon bird destroying the camera.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
It put our camera out of commission.
Damn. Owls are not to be messed with.
So, but we've had some really close calls. We've got no doubt it's a Bigfoot arm. Coming way up. But what good is that? It's not going to prove anything.
Yeah. There's been some accounts that I've heard talking to people that talked about the motion sensors that they put on lights around their house. They would go to the edge of their yard and find sticks stuck in the ground right at the spot where the sensor would kick on. That's intelligent behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's like the stuff we used in the military. When you're in the military, you have the only RA light you could see is that laser that's with night vision goggles when you paint a target. Okay. Now, like you said, are they seeing the same light spectrum that we could see through night vision? And they're putting it up, and you got this light, they're dancing around in the woods or just pointing straight from the camera. Of course, not going to be like, hey, what is that? Yeah. Well, like we talked about too.
I have an idea. They also may see not only in IR, or maybe they don't see in IR, but I think they see in UV. I've done a number of experiments that keeps pointing towards the fact they can see in the UV spectrum, which is ultraviolet. Same spectrum bees can see in. There's other, what you think, well, yeah, right. If a bee can see in UV, why would a Bigfoot? Well, because there's a whole bunch of animals that came from the far north, including caribou, reindeer, that can see in the UV spectrum. And they evolved. They evolved in the same environment that Bigfoot probably evolved in, and they can see in the UV spectrum.
Well, when we think about evolution, what we sometimes forget is that evolution is a biological arms race.
Right.
A predator evolves a trait that makes them more successful. Well, then the prey evolves something as a counter defense to it, and so on and so forth. Okay, deer are kind of the textbook prey animals. Everything eat deer. Typically, unless you're reading some really obscure fiction, deer don't kill things. Okay, if the deer is seeing an infrared spectrum or UV spectrum, what are they avoiding that can?
Right.
Humans can't. We're not the hunters that cause that evolutionary behavior. Maybe our missing link, the Bigfoot is.
Well,
if Bigfoot can see those, they need to see it too.
I tell everybody to buy a UV flashlight. Take it in the woods with you. Check your own gear with it. You'd be surprised what glows on a person or on your game trail camera. Even the white plastic that's over the passive, IR, which doesn't put anything electrical out of it. It just, it sees heat. So it's very passive, but even those glow.
Have you had any luck with drones?
In what level? Not really. Not really. I mean, to me, a drone would be really good if you go into a very remote area with very maybe black spruce forest where you can see into the canopy, and then you get action and then you launch the drone and see if you can see anything, get any footage. And we're going to try that this summer. I've been using drones since the 90s. I mean, we used drones before that. Nobody ever even heard the name.
Yeah.
We were contacting military people, and this was like, you can't say the name drone. Back when we were doing research. And so I've done everything. And I've been like the coyote trying to catch the roadrunner. I failed every time.
Well,
quit buying your drones. The roadrunner makes a fool out of me every single time.
It's because he gets all those care packages from Acme.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Acme, yeah.
Acme, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of a weird deal because life is so short, so many things to try. We all have lives. We have to pay our bills, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so we have to work. We have to do things we don't like to do, and we have kids and we have families, and so we only have so much time. But boy, I'll tell you, I've sure got a million things I want to try, but I don't know if I'll ever get to try them all.
Yeah.
Well, it's all we can do is do our best.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking forward to seeing Legend Meets Science 2. I really want to see what you guys are showing with the spectrographs of the throat singing, and I'm pretty stoked to see that. And I'm definitely going to try that calling sometime to see if I can get a reaction, because I've never done call blasting.
I want to, right. Of course, you can try it out in the field, but I want to put a camera down one of their throats too to film how they're doing it.
Well, good luck finding a practitioner here in the States. I've only found a handful of videos of people that still practice it.
Now, we'll have to maybe get somebody flown here, or I can just get a hold of an ENT out there and have them do it. But I want to film what's going on.
I think that would be awesome. I would
How
definitely want to see that video.
Well, the missing pieces of the spectrum are interesting because I've heard the regular throat singing. And in fact, actually, Jim Parsons, the guy from The Big Bang Theory, played Sheldon Cooper. He can throat sing, and I saw him do it on a little special one time, and I was like, "That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard." It's fascinating. But this is the same guy who plays a theremin and some of these other weird things. He's kind of an odd duck. But I find it really interesting. There's that missing piece of the spectrum, the audio spectrum, because everything's got harmonics. Nothing has a pure tone. And my dad's a classically trained pipe organist, and he would beat it into my head that each of the pipes, if you're hearing that that middle C pipe, it's not just making a middle C, it's making the middle C, it's making the octave above, it's making the fifth above.
Yep.
It's just that what's the strongest, and those extra harmonics give the richness of that sound. How is this creature, or what is different about this creature that the spectrum is missing? Why is there a dead zone that's not vibrating? That's weird. It's very, very weird.
We could learn as much from what it's doing as much as we learn from what it's not doing.
Yeah.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, and the way they can go from very low to very high very quickly is amazing.
Yeah.
And the lung capacity.
And the low makes sense. I mean, presumably they're 1,000 pounds and have a throat the size of my waist. Okay, low, I get it, but the high doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a baritone voice. I can make the high tones with much difficulty and usually some kind of pain.
Yeah.
But how is a 1,000-pound creature making those sounds, and why is it making those sounds?
Yeah, and you can by the width of the vocal cords, you can determine the exact height of a human or a Bigfoot if we knew the exact distance of its vocal cords.
Exactly.
It equals the height. There's a formula.
And there's so many
Pretty
things they're coming up with. I mean, even with the hair and the being hollow and the way it camouflages itself and the height, like you said, with the vocals and everything. It goes through portals and it looks like the predator. Well, I believe it's the hair.
Could
like
be.
We talked about, DA. I believe it's the hair. That's throwing everything off, and it's the light spectrum.
I will never rule anything out until we've proven it completely beyond a shadow of a doubt. However, 20 years in law enforcement, basically, I look for quantifiable solutions. Once everything has been eliminated, of course, then we'll start going to farther and farther different directions. But I still think that there are tangible explanations without going to things like that.
Well, my opinion is they have a number of super abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's a phenomena. An electric eel. Okay, if you had never heard of an electric eel, and I handed you one, and you got your 1,000,000-volt jolt from the snake-like thing, you would think, it's some phenomenon, some magic. But since we don't all think anything because we all grew up knowing about electric eels, but that's a super ability. The ability to some birds to navigate. There's so many super abilities, and Bigfoot has great strength, which is a super ability. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of its super abilities that we seem to notice, but we just don't know. Is it paranormal or is it just a physical? I'm just going with super ability,
Exactly.
Well, what's an octopus?
Yeah. Exactly. A great example.
Blue blood, highly intelligent with no significant brain cells.
Yep.
They change color. They fit through any container. I'm like, they've got 3% of our DNA. I'm like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah, they not only change color, but they can change texture.
Right. Yeah, that's insane what they're capable of doing. Tom, real quick, I want to say thank you to William Bedard for the super chat. He says thermal's the only way to go. Real simple. I agree. I think thermal's going to give us a lot of promising results. And we're at the top of the hour, folks. Just a quick reminder: if you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, I'd ask you if you to hit that subscribe button and share the video with friends that you know enjoy this type of content, as it helps us to continue to grow the channel and to have guests like Doug on the show. And I'm having a great time tonight, and I appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you guys for being here, and we're going to continue with the show now. That's my little spiel for the time being, but I just wanted to throw that in real quick.
So
Doug, which is your favorite episode of MonsterQuest?
Oh my God, I don't know. The one that was finished.
I was like, he's been an hour and a half sleep. What do you want from him?
Yeah, I mean, he's like ready to pass out. He's like, I'm going after this.
I really don't know. I mean, they're all your. The one I was watching. I don't know. Probably the ones, the most memorable ones are the ones like the giant squid. Where those things worked out. The one where we filmed a 12-foot shark in fresh water in St. Lawrence River. No, it was a Greenland shark. I mean, that's to me amazing. It was by a guy's fishing dock where he fishes for walleye. I was supposed to have 12-foot sharks there.
No kidding.
Well, the Greenland shark is practically a cryptid itself. I mean, they've antifreeze for blood, and they believe they live hundreds of years, and
maybe even thousands of years.
Yeah,
I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Well, that's another prime example of what you were calling super abilities. Sharks use the electromagnetic frequency to track prey.
Yeah.
And
could you imagine if we knew every little thing in natural history and all the abilities animals have? We would be blown away.
Oh, absolutely.
Even our common dogs that we love, the super abilities that they have, the smell. I mean, they can smell 1,000 times better than we.
Absolutely.
They can read off of your butt. They can read off of you if you're having a panic attack or seizure coming on. I mean, it's crazy what they can do too. Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't know. We don't know, but we can speculate.
What about that one episode where it was you and your son? I love that episode. You and your son, mistake me if I'm wrong, they were throwing stuff in and rocks being thrown on that one episode. And you had the camera set up. I mean, that was the one I liked the most. That was the one that had the most evidence. I mean, we have a well-known doctor look at you and go, they're throwing rocks at the house, at the cabin. That kind of like blew him away.
Yeah.
You could see the look on his face.
He never experienced that. Yeah, he never experienced that. I had it was sad because we were up there like 3 days and nothing happened, but it was pouring rain. Finally, the rain let up. I remember walking outside the cabin, and I'm on the porch, and all of a sudden a rock hit. This isn't in the show. A rock hits this shed where the gas is stored, hits the shed and ricochets and rolls right to my feet. And I went, ooh, they're here. And I went inside. And of course, I don't think anybody believed me. I go, they're here. I told them what happened. I said, I just had a rock. Whatever did it knew exactly where that thing was going to ricochet and roll. I mean, it literally stopped 6 inches from my feet outside. And I went, ooh. So I go in, I tell them. I don't think they believe me. But then when the rock started, raining down on us, the first one almost could have killed my son. He was just peeing on the corner. And we were just all I was talking with Kurt Nelson and Blaine, we're in the dark. And Blaine's peeing, taking a leak at the corner of the cabin. And the reason we're doing that, because, we're all on edge. And a rock hit the side of the cabin right by his head, just missed his head. And Kurt got PO'd. I mean, he was mad. I mean, I've never seen a guy actually get that mad that quick. You could tell he was just angry at this thing almost killing Blaine. And he took a rock and he just, he whipped it right back. And that was interesting. And of course, that started the exchange. Then the one hit the roof of the cabin, and it was a pretty good sized sharp rock. So
here's a question, and it's just something that occurred to me. If they're throwing rocks at you, have you ever thought about collecting some of the rocks to get epithelials off?
What else happened?
Yeah, we actually did collect the rock at Snell, and it all got turned over to the scientist. I never heard what happened. And now, yes, which brings me to a point. These things have a very different sebum, skin oil, also called surface skin lipids. And our skin oil is acidic. That comes out of our fingers, comes out of sweat pores. It leaves fingerprints, so it's oily. But their skin oil is amazing. It's white. In many cases, it's white, or it's white on occasion. To give you an example, I've been looking at fingerprints and handprints on windows and car doors for 30 years from people. Everybody just going, oh, it left dusty fingerprints, dusty. Everything's dusty fingerprints, including me. I found them too on our car one time. We were up on an expedition, and we had our truck parked, and the thing came up on the porch and was messing with the recycling bins. And it would walk back, mess with the truck, come back up, mess with the recycling bins, like open and close them. And there was a big handprint on that truck on the tailgate. And I just thought, oh, it's dust. What can I do with dust? I can't do anything with it. So you take a photo of it, but you're done. But one day, I got a call from an area that we're researching. And I had told him to put his camera trap on the ground, take the batteries out, and whatever keeps messing with it, just leave it there and let him play with it. So he calls me back a few days later and he goes, this thing's covered with fingerprints. And he said, they're really weird. He said, they don't rub off. And I went, what do you mean they don't rub off? And he goes, well, it's this white kind of sticky crap and you can't really get it off. And I went, all of a sudden, all the dots connected.
Right.
And I went, I'll call you back. And I started thinking, and then I started calling some other scientists. And basically, every creature or every primate has a different set of chemicals in their skin oil. Like humans have triglycerides and cholesterol. Gorillas don't, even though they're a very close relative. They all have a different ratio, at the very least, if not different chemicals. So I'm thinking, maybe this could be another piece of evidence, the chemical compound of these fingerprints. And then, there's going to be skin cells in this. If that oil is so sticky, there's going to be skin cells left in it. So yes, now, if you know of anything that's touched anything, swab it, put it in a paper envelope, swab it, photograph it. Rocks, I don't care what it is. There could be tons of skin cells on it. So absolutely right, yes. But even back then, we weren't thinking that way.
I've been putting together a kit a little at a time. Basically, I'm using an old, large tackle box, and I'm putting together a kit very much like a crime scene processing kit I used as a cop. So that's going to go in the back of the car and go with me anytime we go out in the field, so I can process anything I find without contaminating it.
Yeah. So this skin oil is so unique that we gave it a moniker, and I talked to Shelley Covington, Montana, and she came up with the name Sasquatch alba vernix. Mm-hmm. So we really want that term to get out there and people be aware to get a hold of people, because the latent details are so great. It leaves, like, you can see the sweat pores in this stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And once again, you do a lot of good photographs. Swab it for DNA, one swab, good, collect a lot of it for DNA, put it in a paper envelope, collect a bunch for the skin oil analysis. But this is something that every scientist can go out and collect, because they don't seem to mind touching things.
Yeah.
Right.
They just don't.
Pork and Beans had a question for you. He says, have you ever experienced anything with Dogman?
Not that I'm aware of. Every experience I've had could be Dogman. I don't know. I haven't seen anything. We are actually it's really interesting. We're doing research on a property where neighbors are claiming they've seen Dogmen. It's like, my grandmother and her mother and, me and our family, we've seen them on, and they're not Bigfoots, they're Dogmen. And we're like, they say it's so matter of fact to you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That there's nothing you can do but just accept it, matter of fact.
Yeah, like it's nothing.
Yeah, like it's no big deal. Like, okay.
Looking forward to seeing that documentary. Yeah. I'm the Region 2 director for the North American Dogman Project, so I'm very much into finding evidence for Dogman.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So you work with like Jody Cook, or
I know Jody, Nick Valente, the whole crowd from the NADP.
Gotcha. Wow. It's a fascinating thing because, one, we have less evidence of Dogman. We don't really have anything, physical evidence.
Right.
So we have far less than Bigfoot, but I wouldn't say the sightings are all that rare. They're not that
definitely
rare.
Not. They seem to be on the rise.
Yeah, and on the rise, yeah.
And I've often wondered if they're becoming bolder or we're getting more into habitat encroachment.
I don't know. Who knows? We don't know. And a lot of it, could be the fact that we just keep creating more edges. We have more deer population. Look, when I grew up and I was a kid, living in the woods, I was outdoors. I wouldn't even sleep in the house in the summer. Never. There wasn't a summer day I would sleep in the house. It was outside or nothing. The sky was my ceiling. And so, but we never saw wildlife. It didn't exist back then. I grew up in the 60s. There was no wildlife. Never saw an eagle. Never saw a deer. Never saw a bobcat. Never saw wild turkey. Never saw any of these things. We had really decimated. By the 1960s, there wasn't anything. And so now I can't take let's see, how many wild turkeys did I see just yesterday? 30, 40? They were extinct even back in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
They were almost extinct.
And you make a good point. I mean, you've got a couple of years on me, but I grew up in the 80s. I was an Eagle Scout. I spent a lot of time in the woods.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of this
That's
stuff.
how it is.
And I live in Springfield, Missouri. 160,000 people, and I live in the city. I have a golden eagle that regularly comes and sits on my porch.
Right.
It sits on the porch.
I never saw an eagle one time in the 60s, and I was in the forest, and there was, I'm just telling you guys, there was nothing.
Right.
Nature conservation has brought a lot of those species
There
back.
were no bears. There were no deer. It made that. I remember seeing a headline in the Minneapolis Star and Tribune.
Mm-hmm.
A deer was sighted. It made the newspapers. I can go out and take a bike ride now and count maybe 100
Like
deer.
a Bigfoot site.
Yeah, I can count 100 deer, have deer within 4 feet of me.
Yeah.
I see grouse. I see sandhill cranes, fox, coyotes.
Yeah.
All, they're just thick. Wildlife is
That's
thick.
how it is by man.
I think there's been a huge comeback. We have bobcats. We have bear. I had bear tracks on my beach, my backyard. The animals are not only learning to live around us, but they're utilizing all of these beautiful edges that we've created. Because animals don't live in the middle of the forest, despite what y'all might think. They don't.
Right.
They might pass through, but they ain't living there because there ain't no food. There's nothing there.
No.
All right.
It's not the sun.
They're adapting to us.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would kind of lean towards the population of all these things are getting greater.
I had a couple of questions from the group, from the chat from you. Mark Napier, I wanted to know if you'd spent any time in the LBL area.
No, I haven't.
That's a really well-known
very
area for
well.
Dogman.
Yep. I'm real.
I spent about a week there this last July. I got some really good video and had a good time. Lanita Bryant says, Doug, I've talked to you on another show. Would you like to have my hair sample that Sasquatch have touched?
Sure, absolutely, of course. Yep. Either I can just obviously she can get a hold of me on Facebook, PM me, and I'll give her an address to send it to.
Awesome.
Yep.
Very cool.
Had another question.
Very, very cool.
You're cold? Oh, I thought you said you were cold.
Cool. No, not here in Florida. I'm sweating.
So up at Snell Grove, you had rocks thrown at you. You said the cabin was attacked.
Yeah.
What kind of vocalizations have you heard up there?
Well, the first time I knew there was for sure a Bigfoot around was when we were, okay, this is what started. I brought my daughter Dakota up there. Joe brought his daughter Maria up there. Vladimir brought his daughter Ina up there. And so it was a father-daughter trip. We'd never done that. And so I would imagine having these little kids up there created some interest. First time kids had ever been there, ever in its history, is we bring, because it's dangerous. You go out there, there's no phones, there's no cell service, there isn't anything. There's no radio waves even. So we were pulling out of a stream, and there was a huge wood knock right by my boat, with Dakota. Dakota was doing monkey sounds, which was interesting. And I asked her, why are you doing that all day? She says, well, it helps me catch fish, Dad. Okay, it was just weird. That may have had something to do with it too. I don't know. But she was doing this kind of like Bigfoot sounds. She was doing it, but we weren't. I never thought Bigfoot when I was up there. I used to sleep out, pull the futon mattress out on the dock because I never saw any wildlife up there. There wasn't any. Just like a typical non-edge, because you're surrounded by so much boreal forest. There was one seagull that lived on the lake. That was the only wildlife we would ever see. One seagull. I want you to think about that a while. One. And that seagull protected that whole lake. That was his area.
Now,
He got blown off course and like, screw it, I'm living here.
What state is this located in?
Yeah.
It's in Ontario, Northern Ontario.
Oh, in Ontario. Okay.
Yeah, flying. You can't get there by car. You got to be flown in and dropped off.
No, this thing.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen one gull by itself.
One gull.
When I've gone to the beach, it's always hundreds.
But remember, over 20 years, I saw one gull and one mouse. 20 years. That's how far out you. One mouse, one gull.
Did you say mouse?
Mouse.
Yeah. How funny.
So now that you've had rocks thrown at your cabin and the cabin shaken, would you sleep out on the mattress like you did before?
No, are you kidding? No,
I don't blame you. I wouldn't either.
No, but it had gotten so secure up there because it was like I never saw a bear, never saw anything. Finally, one year, after 2 years of going there, I had a bear come in, up to the cabin. And the bear, I don't think the bear had ever even seen a human. It wasn't even afraid of us. It had never even seen a human.
It's like, hey, what's going on?
It was just really chill. I went out there and talked to it a little bit. And I sat on the porch and it just sat there next to me. And it was totally chill. I didn't know what I was. Didn't give a damn. One time we saw a pine marten, but you remember the first 20 years, a mouse and one seagull.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's not funny. But
it's sad when you think about it.
But that's where I'm so passionate when I tell people animals love edges. Yeah. And I can guarantee you, if it wouldn't have been for the lake, there wouldn't have been one seagull and no mice. It's really interesting.
I'm still chuckling about the bear. I just had this vision in my head like a Korg from the Avengers, like, hey, I'm a bear, just going through.
Yeah. Good night. You wonder, what do they think? They've never seen a human. What are they thinking? Had no fear of us. It just was. It wasn't even a big. It wasn't a big black bear because they're pretty scrawny. It's right at the edge of their territory, so they're pretty scrawny. But I did take advantage of the bear, and I put some cookies in my buddy's his duffel bag, some Chips Ahoy, crumbled them all up, put them in a suitcase. And I set a suitcase out on the porch because we were leaving that day. Well, the bear looked at it. Joe came out, and the bear looked at Joe and looked at the suitcase, looked at Joe, looked at the suitcase, grabbed the suitcase, and ran. and I said, Joe, you better go after your bag. And he's like, he's seen his bag ripped open. His bag is getting ripped open on every log, underwear. And all his clothes are getting a big long trail. So, he went and collected them all. And we had a joke that time because every time I'd give him a hat, I'd always give him a new hat from the outfitter. And every time something would happen to his hat. The wind would blow it off, go in the lake. It would drop into the fire. And finally, he was so proud that day because his hat didn't get wrecked. Well, the bear he had his hat in the suitcase, and the bear bit that little plastic, the little snap thing in the back and broke it. So, dude, you still didn't make it.
That's hilarious.
The hats either do really well or they do really poorly. You look at like Indiana Jones and the crap that his hat went through.
Yep.
I have a boonie that I take everywhere, and it's been to like 4 continents and like 15 countries. And my wife is like, "How does that damn hat survive everything?" And secretly she's like, I wish the damn hat would die. But
go to Snell Grove. You'll lose the hat.
Go to Snell Grove with Doug. He'll put cookies in it.
Poor Joe.
That's hilarious.
And Joe, he was a good friend, and he's in. I think he's in one of the episodes. Yeah, he's in one of the episodes, and he talks about a lake I used to take him to, Hidden Lake, and it was really tough to get back in there because it's a shallow, long, like a mile stream. Mm-hmm. And you pretty much have to, you got to put your motor up and pull your little 14-foot boat through all these rocks to get in there. And he just always would say, God, we are just totally feel like a zoo animal, like I'm being watched. And we would always and I did. And I'm like, God, you're right. I've always felt like I'm being watched back here. It's really creepy. And I told Kurt Nelson about that place.
Has there anything been?
And that's the first place he wanted to go camp alone.
Right.
And we took him back there, and he set up his tent alone. I thought, dude, you're the bravest man ever.
I was thinking about you when you said you weren't going to sleep out on the mat anymore.
No.
My thought would be like, not only am I not sleeping out of there, we need a stronger door.
Exactly. The door on the cabin is thin, very weak, plate glass windows.
I'd be replacing all that with some heavy duty.
I mean, a Pine Martin could get in there if it wanted to. It's pretty bad. No security. But anyhow, so I was saying, so that happened, and then we did some wood knocking that night. That we heard the knocking right by, and I never thought about Bigfoot up there, but we tried wood knocking. So Anthony, we got a wood knock 12 feet from us, right there, right outside the firelight. And man, we all just turned white. And so we did a rock exchange. I had Maria, the girl, the oldest girl that was up there, but she did a rock exchange. And we watched this rock exchange happen. And I told her, throw it underhand, right into that, right into the woods there, 20 feet away, 30 feet. And it would toss a little rock out, little half-inch rock, gently. That went on for an hour. And so I thought, oh, this thing likes us.
It was
whatever.
Throw it back to her?
Oh, yeah. Back, and we sat there and did it for an hour. Back and forth. These little rock exchange. And it would just land gently by our feet, right?
Wow.
And we know there's this thing 25 feet away from us, right? Just in this little stand of these dog pines, black spruce. And it's, it's kind of dark up there. It's not like so ambient light. It was a dark night. And we have the firelight, but that's it. And so I'm not about to shine a flashlight over there. And I'm not that stupid. I'm just not going to do it. So anyhow, so then that went on, and we finally all got, whatever, not bored, but we got done thinking, well, it's another day tomorrow. And so went inside the cabin. I grabbed I said, I'm not tired. I'm going to sit and read a magazine. Everybody goes off to their bedrooms, and I'm sitting with a tea candle reading Field and Stream. And I start finally getting tired after reading. Reading always makes me tired. Remember that, DA, when you send me your book.
Well, hopefully mine won't bore you to sleep.
Well, they just just makes me get sleepy. Anyhow, so I go up to this window that faces the forest, and there's a solar-powered fluorescent light above the sink. And I went from a pitch-black cabin, I flipped on the switch, and I was real quiet. I snuck up there. I didn't want to wake anybody. I don't want to wake the girls. I don't want to wake anybody. I flipped the switch on, and of course, I light up like a sore thumb. Well, that's fine. But whatever was standing outside that window, watching me, went ballistic when that light came on. Because I lit up like my hair was, whiter than white. It looked like a light. And we were probably face to face at that point. I busted it, and it just started screaming, talk about screaming. But then other screaming started from another animal, and then another one. Oh. And next thing you know, all of a sudden I hear running up on something jumped up on the roof. Oh, and I looked up, and the freaking skylight's open. This big skylight's wide open.
What?
And I'm hearing boom, 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 boom on the roof, and then screaming. That's, and I'm thinking, oh my God. I look at that skylight, and I'm like, oh, I'm dead.
No wonder you have white hair.
Well, no, I had white hair before I went up there. But so I'm panicking. I'm looking for the pole, the pole to crank it shut, because it's up there in a high ceiling. And I'm hearing all the screaming and running, and all of a sudden, and I get the skylight closed, and I'm thinking, and
that quarter-inch of plastic's really going to save you.
Well, then the screaming really started. It even got worse. And the cabin started getting rocked. It's up on blocks, like cement blocks. And if you think creatures are strong, double, triple what you think they are. Nobody woke up. This is the weird thing. Okay, so
the girl, wow.
Nobody woke up. It was as if they were all. I even went in Vladimir's room to go beat on his back, and I literally was hitting him as hard as I could. never even acknowledged I was there. Then I ran into Joe's bedroom and started beating him. I wanted a witness to this. And while I'm beating on Joe, it just quit. It quit. It shut off as quick as it started.
Wow.
But I was like in a bad movie. I mean, if I would have had a recording of that, it would have been priceless. It was amazing. But I literally thought I was going to die for sure. And then with my daughter was going to get killed. It was going to be bad. They were not happy. So here's what I think might have happened, and just might. I think there were 2 adults out there. I think there was a juvenile with them. I think when I flicked the light on, the juvenile leaped up onto the roof in fright. Mom and Dad came and were basically screaming, not at me, but at the thing up on the roof.
Don't get your ass down.
Basically, yeah. It sounded exactly.
Down here.
Remember the samurai kind of stuff, the screaming? It was like that, but worse.
Wow.
By 2 animals. And the running was just, it was insane on the roof.
That's crazy.
Boom, 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 boom. And the screaming. And then the cabin's getting lifted and rocked. And what would you do if your kid, I mean, it wouldn't come off something? You might try to rock it to get, nudge them off. Yeah. So they were lifting the cabin up 6 inches on each side.
Crazy.
I could see the floorboards buckling on the floorboards in the cabin.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That would have been a butt puckering moment.
It was a puckering moment, yeah. And people always say, well, they peed themselves and stuff. That was my test. I did not. So I figured I never will. Thank God.
Awesome.
Anyhow, it was insane. But the fact it turned on that quick and shut off that quick.
It's amazing. Well, Doug, it has been an honor and a pleasure.
No one wants to wait this thing.
Yeah, figure that one out. Maybe you could associate it with the fresh air and the fact these are working class people that, get up early in the morning, work all week. Then I just tuckered them out really bad, keeping them up late night after night. But then I think, God, I was hitting them really hard.
That's awesome.
So who knows?
Well, it has been an honor and a pleasure getting to talk to you, Doug. I hate to drop off early, but I have a date with my beautiful wife and my rest of my family, so I have to step off. You gentlemen have fun, and I will watch the rest of the broadcast at a later date, but it has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, good meeting you, Steve.
Later, Steve.
Have fun, Steve.
Good night, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Tell everybody I said hi.
Oh, will do. I'll give my love.
So I'm at a loss. If I had one running around on the roof, that would have been just about full-blown panic mode.
Not even that.
You look up and you see a big skylight open.
I'd be grabbing that's the first instinct would be a lock and load. I mean, you're like, okay,
I'd be grabbing a weapon, trying to defend myself.
I didn't even think of grabbing a knife, or we had no gun, we had no weapon, we had no bear spray or pepper spray. We had nothing. I had a butter knife in the door. That's what every night we'd always put a butter knife in the door. You know that where you stick it in the wood crack on the trim. Only to alert me. I'm a light sleeper. If something, bear, would break into the cabin, just so you're alerted to it. And that's all that butter knife would do.
That's crazy.
The best comment. He says, I would have crapped everyone else's pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then, we got up there again, and the cabin got attacked again. And my son, literally, he went into shock. He actually went into, he was not good. I was worried about his blood pressure was dropped, and he had turned white, and he was freaking out. He was shaking uncontrollably. And the cabin was being attacked. So he got to experience that the next trip.
Is this when you guys went up there to do the or is this was a different trip?
Yeah. It was the trip that we went up with Meldrum and Kurt Nelson.
Okay.
That's when Blaine went into.
And that was you didn't talk about that in the show about your son going through all that.
I wrote it in, but it just got all nixed. It got all nixed.
What has been your most terrifying experience?
Probably that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see how that would do it.
There was another time I fell off a cliff, a steep cliff, and went into November cold lake water, late November. And I remember that knocked the wind out of me. And I got hurt a little bit, but I remember trying to get out, and I couldn't of the water. And I was going into hypothermia, and I had clawed all of the skin off all my fingers trying to get out with no help and no way to scream because I couldn't breathe. Ew. And then seeing a hand reach down, somebody had saw me, fall or suspected they couldn't find me. Anyhow, my brother, actually, my little brother, saved my life that day. It was a miracle he found me.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah, so that was a little scary. But I've been in a number of plane incidents in the wilderness to where, not really crashes, but controlled crashes, where they have to put down now. Yeah. We have to drop the plane now. And if we don't drop it, we're going to die. So I've got a number of those. And,
wonderful.
And so is a vet. That's why she won't go with me anymore.
Porkin Beans had another question for you. He says, I hear the ones up north are more aggressive and way bigger. Any thoughts on that?
Well, Bergman's law says that, one, because you need to repel the cold and keep warm, the animals get bigger and bigger. Like our white-tailed deer get bigger and bigger the farther you go north. Because body mass helps you stay warm. And I'm not sure about the meaner thing, though. I think that's all whatever. I really do. I think you can have a mean one up north. You could have a great one. You could have a playful one. You could have one that operates on pure fear. You could have one that's really curious. I mean, as individual as even white-tailed deer are,
Right.
I mean, even they have their own foods they all like to eat and things they like to do and friends they like to hang out with. I mean, Bigfoots aren't going to be any different.
Exactly.
I don't think you can.
Just like humans, individual personalities might vary from area to area or from individual to individual.
Individual to individual, I think it's more like it. Yeah. I mean, are there meaner people in the north or in the south? I don't, whatever.
Right.
Depends on what part of the south.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's another show we could get into, but not anyway.
Yeah.
See, that a lot of stuff you didn't put in the show, and that's why I was so curious about it.
Oh, of course.
A lot of stuff it goes on the floor. It's not in.
Yeah, I could tell you all sorts of stories that didn't make it in the show, and they're all scary.
I would love to hear
them.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go with it.
And everybody goes, well, why didn't they go on the show? Well, because the show is only 44-50 long.
Yeah.
And you got to meet a deadline. You either got to go, well, I'm going to throw out this map, or I'm going to put this in, or I'm going to, sometimes I made those decisions too, and they were hard.
Right.
But also thinking you were going to continue to make them.
Yeah.
So if you didn't use it this time, you could talk about it in the future.
Mark Napier asks, have you ever gone to or plan to go to Port Chatham?
Up in Alaska, yeah. The abandoned place.
You mean the town?
Yeah, I'd love to go to Port Chatham. In fact, we had a talk with a network about that. I want to go there. I want to go there so bad. It looks interesting. I mean, it's a great area anyhow to be that isolated.
Oh yeah.
It's just, it's a great experience. So no matter what happens up there, it's great. It's just good to be there. That's an amazing area.
That would be awesome.
All of the inlets in that part of Alaska is just, it's insane. People just can't even fathom it. It's one of those. It's one of those areas.
Cool.
It's one of those areas you could wood knock, and it might take a Bigfoot 10 days to even walk to you.
Yeah, that's a huge forest out there. Very deep, very ancient forest.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I've got friends that live near there, like in the wilderness, and I love talking to them because they have occasional Bigfoot experiences too.
We had a gentleman on the show named Fred Roll, who's from that area, and he had one of the most terrifying Bigfoot stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You might be more likely to have a scary experience with the one that isn't used to people or interacting with people. because they're going to be more afraid, but then less afraid. Maybe more afraid to interact with you, but not necessarily to spy on you.
Yeah.
Probably
Right.
going to be more likely to spy on you.
And they might also see you as more of a competitor for food resources too.
Yeah, who knows? We just don't know. And
Well,
the missing,
like
the
one
missing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Anthony.
Doug. Oh, it's like
delays,
it's like the, I know. It's like the one by the cabin. The way it was playing with water. Throwing a rock back and forth.
You cut out right at the end of your.
He was saying about the one you experienced at the cabin, how it was tossing rocks with your daughter.
Yeah, and the fact that the first rock, after this long rainstorm, we were up there with Jeff and Kurt. It had been raining every day, and then I go out there when it finally stopped raining at like 9 o'clock at night, and I go out there and a rock hits the shed and ricocheted off just perfectly and rolled right up to my feet. Well, that's playful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's playful, intelligent behavior.
Yeah, it certainly was not aggressive in any way.
No, not at all. I was
just
just saying,
getting your attention.
I was saying, hey, dude, hey, Mr. Whitehair, remember me?
I'm over here.
Yeah, we're over here. We're back, And it was funny,
So
too,
what
because
other
I've had so many
crazy
people go.
stuff?
I don't know. I mean, we've had cordwood thrown at the cabin with such force that it just reverberates the whole cabin. Wow. I mean, when you throw a piece of cordwood, if I threw it, it wouldn't do what these things. It's like the whole cabin shakes. They throw it so hard, So I've been in the cabin where they've thrown things, and it's insane. I mean, it's just kaboom. It's not like boom. The last time I was up there, and I was up there getting played. I'm sorry, Anthony. We have a huge delay on our connection.
DA, can you hear me good or no?
You keep cutting in and out, man.
Can you hear me good?
No, you're cutting in and out pretty bad, dude.
I don't know what. You know why? Because it's the weather here. We're getting those bad thunderstorms in Florida.
Could be
it's just raining like hell here.
Or your wife is watching.
Cut in, log off, and log back in.
Or your wife is watching a 4K movie on Netflix. That can happen too.
Very much so.
Or the neighbors. All neighbors decides Saturday night here. Everybody's watching movies, streaming.
So all of that has happened right there at Snell Grove. How many individuals do you think live in that area? Do you think it's just one family group, or is there a transient population?
I don't know, but the thing is, it's a cabin where 6 fishermen will come at a time, and not every week or every month. There's people up there. You have to bring 6 people, so generally it's always men. Mm-hmm. They come up there, and everybody overstocks the perishable foods they bring. So at the end of the trip, the outfitter tells everybody, throw your food out behind the cabin, your perishables, your 4 watermelons you brought, your cantaloupes, your grapes, your cheese, all your perishables have to go behind the cabin. You can bring, all the other stuff, garbage, everything's got to come out. And so
like a buffet for them.
I think it was just a stop. They're thinking, oh, here we can get all this cool stuff that we can't get, in the boreal forest. It's got to be awful tempting. And every exact time, the same day, every week, 6 fishermen are throwing out all these perishables. Right?
It becomes a routine food source then.
About 150 feet behind the cabin. And so it was a very routine food source. That's what I think maybe initially attracted them. Or it could be the huge blueberry crop, because we were up there before the blueberries were ripe. We had no action, none. But some native people did right south of Snell, about 100 miles away. There were some natives that lived on in an area where they were, harvesting blueberries. Mm-hmm. And these 2 native women had a sighting, which, once again, we didn't have any activity. but these natives did, just south of us. So maybe they follow the ripening wave of the blueberries.
I've seen. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say blueberries are very important food for fat storage and winter hibernation, for instance. In other words, bears eat blueberries, but it does so much good for them to slow their metabolism down over the winter. Blueberries are critical for that. So maybe there's a component that they need. Once again, we don't know, but I think that's why we didn't have any activity. So it wasn't necessarily the perishable food, but it was the ripening blueberries.
We have seen a lot of encounters in our area here in the Midwest that coincide with the blackberries, the wild blackberries.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Mark Napier asks, he says, do you think an extended research trip would get a lot more evidence?
Oh, God, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you go in the right time of year. If they're not there, you can research all you want. There ain't nothing going to happen. Remember, I was going there 20 years, never had anything happen. Other than that story where I had, there was a footprint found on the portage by some guests that was apparently size 16 triple E.
Wow,
they saw the mud on the portage.
That's a large foot.
Snell, yep. And then there were there was the incidents of the singing that I never connected that to Bigfoot. And then there was the incident of two guys that work for me I brought up there, and they were talking about this big log that came sailing over the top of the forest, landing by their boat. And we just figured it was a branch that was wedged from a storm, and then somehow it got released like a catapult.
The odds of them being right there when that happened are very
I realized that. It probably was Bigfoot activity.
Especially considering how far it came out.
Oh,
because that would be a tremendous amount of tension to launch it 30 feet out into the lake.
Yeah, it tumbled over the top of the trees. Yep. So they thought that was
thrown with intent.
Yeah. So other than that, I never had anything happen. I mean, it was just uneventful. Totally uneventful. It was my happy place. It was where I could go to be really safe. Little did I know. And so they may have even there was a family, they may have seen me numerous times coming up there. I was behaving, fishing, catching fish, and putting fish guts. Once again, bringing them out, 200 yards from the cabin and putting them on shore and feeding that damn seagull, the one seagull. And he'd gulp down the guts from like 6 walleyes in just seconds. It was insane. One seagull. And he was huge.
Yeah.
It was one seagull, but man, he made up for every seagull I've ever seen. But it was interesting too, because me and Joe actually had a sighting of, it could only be Bigfoots. We were out burning garbage one day, the paper, just our paper, and we're burning it, and we hear a chimp chattering, like arguing, like 2 chimpanzees arguing over across just a little tiny bay, and it's the rock that we would always put our fish guts for Mr. Seagull. And we saw 2 black shadows walking just behind the tree line, the first row of trees, which are real skinny. And we heard the fighting. It's all like fighting, similar to what I heard at Snell. And Joe heard it, and I heard it, and we both saw the 2 black creatures. And I knew damn well they were bear. They were upright, walking behind pine trees. But all we saw was black. We didn't see arms or legs or armpits or, we didn't see any details. But what else could it be?
Good point.
You know what it wasn't?
Yeah. It wasn't actual chimps out there.
No, we know it wasn't chimps. We know it wasn't, unless 2 blackbirds were walking upright that I've never seen in 20 years, which I doubt. That was the same weekend, just so you know, that we had the cabin attacked. But this is before the cabin got attacked. I didn't connect any of these dots.
Well, one thing I think is very interesting is I've heard that description said numerous times of people that said the chattering sounded very chimpanzee-like.
It was, yeah.
It makes me wonder what would happen if you could get a good recording of a chimp in distress call, because I know that I'd heard them on some of Jane Goodall's documentaries.
Right.
You broadcast that at a fairly loud frequency. I
Right.
wonder what the reaction would be.
I think it's really worth giving a try for a whole summer.
Yeah. Yeah, do it periodically over the course of 2-3 months, and then document your findings.
And what I heard sounded like two chimps, exactly like two African chimps fighting. Actually fighting, arguing.
That's given me a lot of great ideas. I'm going to put a lot of sounds like that, and I'm going to put some downloads of culling and some throat singing on my phone, because I've got a really good Bluetooth speaker. Yep. I'm thinking about just setting it up and setting by the fire and putting out some noise and see what happens.
Another tip I can give you, and I can send you this call. There's one coyote call, just one type, that has elicited incredible response to me all over the country.
Really?
It's gotten chest beating, which is a behavior I've never gotten any other way. So where you hear this boom, 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 and you can tell it's a chest beat. And then you'll wait 10 minutes, play it again. The chest beating will be closer. Then you wait 10 minutes, play it again. It'll be closer. It elicits this one response. And I remember I was with Rick Knoll out at Skookum Meadows, and we were camping out at the Gifford National Pinchot Forest, where they got the Skookum cast.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was talking to Rick, and I'm going, dude, I want to do this coyote call because I was in New York, and we got this chest beating. And I was with Brian Goslin of the Whitehall Police when that happened. And so he was like, oh, okay, cool. But nobody ever expects something to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I play this call. Oh, there we go. There's chest beating. First time Rick had ever heard chest beating.
Yeah, I would love to have that call if you don't mind sending it to me.
No, I'm happy to. You just put it on a Bluetooth, I'm not saying you're going to get it, but I've had it happen 3 times. I've used it.
Years ago, back in the mid 80s, when I was a teenager, coyotes in our area had become like a huge nuisance population. They were taking down farm animals, and people were losing pets. And the Missouri Department of Conservation put out a bounty on them. And we would go out and do predator calls and call in coyotes, and you take in the ears, and Missouri Department of Conservation would pay you for the ears because you were reducing the population of these coyotes in some of these endangered areas. I remember one night we were camping out south of Lebanon, Missouri, off South Highway 5, and we'd been doing predator calls trying to bring coyotes in, and off in the distance we heard a pack, and then all hell broke loose. I don't know what happened to that pack, but it sounded like they were going through the meat grinder. Yeah. It was a long distance away. We never saw it.
Did you hear yelping?
We never heard another coyote the rest of that night.
Did you hear some yelping too from the coyotes?
Yes.
Like they were being injured?
Yeah, it sounded like they were in a big fight with either a larger pack or a larger predator. Because like I said, all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
And for about 15 minutes, we heard shrieking and yelping, and then when everything went quiet, we never heard another coyote that entire night.
Yeah. Have you ever heard my coyote story? What happened? Oh, okay. So we were riding a horseback. It was 3 of us, 4 of us. I can't even remember. It was Joe, me, Mark, and another guy. So I don't know. Anyhow, so we rode through this area, and it's a high activity area. A lot of sightings along the St. Croix River. Mm-hmm. It separates Minnesota and Wisconsin. A lot of sightings on that particular area. Like, I can go to that area and just ask around and find witnesses galore. But so we're there. We'd ridden through the area once, and we're riding back through it, and now we're smelling this horrible rotten flesh. Like, it smelled like there were dead bodies everywhere. It was that bad. I mean, decomposed stuff that, like, oh my God. And we're all covering our mouths, ready to vomit. And all of a sudden, we spot a coyote up in front of us. But the coyote's laying down in the trail. On the horse, on the trail we're horseback riding on. But we get closer and you can see the coyote blinking. He's alive. We're like, well, what's going? You know what I mean? You're just between the smell and the coyote, and you just kind of Bigfoot does that to you. All of a sudden, you're all confused. Like, what the frick's going on? And then, so we dismount, we go up to examine the coyote, and you see these big handprints on it, and the fur like pushed in, and you feel, and the back has been separated, the spine, it's been snapped. The coyote's paralyzed. Coyotes, this just happened. This coyote's as alert as you could ever have. This is not something that happened a week ago or a day ago.
Yeah.
This just happened like seconds before we rode that trail. It grabbed a coyote, broke its back, and then put it on the trail to intimidate us. I mean, the smell, the coyote, the broken spine, no blood on the coyote. The coyote's fully alert.
It's like something picked it up and rang it like somebody ringing a chicken.
Exactly. Yep. And that was it. But it didn't kill it. Did not kill
bizarre.
It. And then you're thinking, well, how did this occur? How did it grab a coyote? Well, if you think back of, ancient humans, we domesticated coyotes and dogs, or wolves. And that's, of course, how we ended up with dogs. There'd be no reason that these things wouldn't have the same type of relationship. There's so much that could be gained out of a symbiotic relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Or the coyotes are just pestering these things, because maybe Bigfoots are a source of good deer meat, because what if Bigfoots are kind of picky on what they eat? And the coyotes clean up their crap all the time. Maybe
I've heard stories of what they thought were Bigfoot kills, where the only thing, the head of the deer was twisted around, and the only thing missing were the organs.
Right. Or the liver, especially the liver.
The liver's high in protein and enzymes.
Okay, but could you imagine? Okay, so let's just play with that. So Bigfoot kills a deer, eats the liver. That's a lot of meat to leave.
Yeah, it is.
I don't picture Bigfoot eating the hide like a wolf. I don't picture Bigfoot eating the bones. They don't have that kind of teeth if they're a primate. They're not good. Right. So the interesting factor is there's got to be some symbiotic relationship, either what I would call a friendly one or an ignoring type relationship. But anyhow, we had to put that coyote out because it was so alive, but it was clearly broken back and paralyzed. And I've got video of it.
That would be awesome.
Really?
I've got video of it. Oh, of course.
That's cool.
Film every.
There's some Native American cultures that think there are medicinal elements to coyotes. Wonder if it was a threat display or possibly it was a gift.
It could have done that for a gift for us. Here's some meat for you, or here's I've just killed my best friend for you.
Yeah. Mark Napier asked, he says, isn't chest beating a sign of aggression? I think it is in gorillas.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, absolutely. Because we got to the point there was somebody in our buggy. I'm not going to give their name, but that we were in a all-terrain, one of these swamp buggies. I don't know even what to call it. They can go in water, land, whatever.
Right.
And we had no flashlights, pitch dark, and all of a sudden, we're getting this chest beating closer and closer. And one of the guys in the back, out of fear, and I don't blame him, I'm not making fun of him, he started almost crying. He wanted to leave now. I mean, it was terrifying because the last chest beat was right near us. And when you hear a Bigfoot beat its chest, 20 feet from you, that's an interesting experience. You feel the power. And so, I would think it's intimidation. Or because it was in response to that coyote call, or it was coming in to check on a rival pack. Because Amy, they help the other coyotes defend off rival packs. I've thought about all sorts of, I call them diarrhea theories.
Well, not everybody handles.
They have said that coyotes are.
Response. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, they've had state. You're not the only one that said coyotes, hang out with them. Of people that said they use them to hunt with too.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because think about what a coyote can do as far as, reconnaissance. They're going to be much quicker, leaping through the forest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they work with wolves too in the same way, because I had a personal experience with wolves and Bigfoot. I was up hunting grouse up in Canada, in a very remote part of Canada. I was camped up there with a buddy. We're hunting grouse every day with bows and arrows, and eating well and just having a ball. Beautiful fall, fall day up in Canada. You can't beat it. And one night, I hear a pack of wolves timber wolves run right through the middle of our camp. You can hear them running, panting. And guess what? All of a sudden the ground started shaking. My cot was just shaking. And boom, 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 boom. Only can describe it. I didn't see it. A bipedal animal ran right behind them, following them, these timber wolves.
That made me think of something really significant. But when I get to her question real quick before I say what I was going to say, Alyssa Khan says, "Have you ever heard anything sound like bubble popping?"
Bubble popping? You mean like bubble wrap? That must be, or that kind of sound?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I'm assuming that's what you mean.
I haven't, but my son has recorded that. He's recorded it, in a wilderness area in the Boundary Waters canoe area, where a man went missing, and that's why he went there to camp there in the same spot where the guy went missing. And he did, and he just left tape audio recorders out at night, and the action that they had is scary. I mean, there's been a lot of men that really had to take their headphones off because they couldn't handle it. It was just so freaky. I mean, there were big boulders landing by the tent, rock clacking, rocks ricocheting around them, wood knocking right outside their tent. Whatever this was wanted them off, wanted them gone. And one night, the first night, Blaine slept through the whole damn thing, which is weird. How do you sleep through that? You should, you hear the recording and you hear him snoring, and you're like, there's no way you could sleep through that. There's no way. But he did.
What I was going to say about the wolf thing, what you were describing with the wolves running and the Bigfoot running behind it, made me think of something. And again, this draws back to me reading about stuff from ancient history, European history.
Right.
Remember what they talked about called the wild hunt, which they would originally thought was Odin and his wolves traipsing through the woods, hunting anything in their path on certain nights of the year.
I've never heard this, Mr. Historian.
The wild hunt it's a Germanic and Scandinavian legend that said on certain nights you would hear wolves and other animals running through the forest in this massive hunt. And of course, most older mythologies were attempt to explain natural phenomenon around them.
Right.
If there were, and then we look at the epic poem Beowulf, and when you read Beowulf and hear the descriptions of Grendel, it very much sounds like a Bigfoot type creature, or what they refer to as a wood woes in northern European mythology.
Interesting.
Now, if what you're saying is Bigfoot and wolf packs are working together to drive prey, that very well could explain where the legend of the wild hunt comes from.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, wolves might be, they might be more proficient as killing a deer, or maybe the Bigfoot's more proficient at killing the deer. Either way, they benefit. I used to do a lot of wolf research up here in Minnesota. I used to work with like Jim Brandenburg, the world famous wolf photographer, and he taught me a ton of stuff about wolves, just being in their presence. And we would have surveillance stuff set up with deer carcasses. And I was doing a doc called Brother Wolf. But anyhow, to hear that in person and experience that was like either a biggest coincidence of my life, or it's like a message to like pursue this. Mm-hmm. I would imagine, there's numerous different animal relationships that we're not aware of. Mm-hmm. If you looked at my bio, we documented, me and Dr. Lynn Rogers, the world's first mammals that have ever been seen cohabitating. And we documented it with hours and hours of film of muskrats and beavers living together. And, doing things. The muskrats would groom the beavers.
Mhm.
The muskrats would do all of the bedding on the ground. They would bring all of the grass or the seaweed and dry it, and so for the bedding. The beavers always worked on the roof and the sides, and they lived together in perfect harmony in this den. And the first time we saw it and started witnessing there, we knew this was not normal. And so that was the first time any mammals had ever been documented living together. But I've always had a sense of wolves working with the ravens, because a raven can't kill a deer.
True.
But a raven can do great aerial reconnaissance and tell the wolf where the deer is.
And there's lots of footage of ravens in the wild picking ticks off of other animals.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a very good symbiotic relationship for the wolves to be engaged with the. But there's another example of animals living in symbiosis like that. Something I learned about down in New Mexico. Prairie dogs and rattlesnakes will often share the same burrow.
Amazing.
And they don't harm each other, but they benefit from the burrow. And rattlesnakes won't attack the prairie dogs or their young, and the prairie dogs. I don't know what they gain from each other.
No, what they gain is wolverines and badgers getting them.
Mm-hmm.
The snake.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that the snake would attack any badgers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's certainly badgers down there.
Oh yeah. So but there's just so much of the stuff we don't understand. There was one time, and I just find it so odd. I'm up and right on the Canadian border, and I'm filming for the doc, The Man Who Walks with Bears. And I'm up there alone with my buddy. It's just the two of us, and I'm trying to get the world's first infrared footage of wildlife. Had never been done before. And so I'm up there filming, I'm looking for bears and whatever I can film. Because Animal Planet they'd never seen infrared footage and wanted to see, what footage would look like. Because it'd never been on television before. And so I'm up there trying to get footage. And I'm talking with my buddy, and all of a sudden all these flying squirrels start landing on me. I'm covered with flying squirrels. And I'm like,
maybe they thought you were Bullwinkle.
This ain't normal, dude. You have a bunch of wildlife landing on you, and then I would stop talking, and they would all take off. As soon as I start talking again, they'd all start landing all over me. But then I started
protection.
No, I started thinking. It just made me connect dots years later. Not then. I didn't connect any dots back then. I just thought it was weird. But I connected dots years later, thinking maybe they were used to landing on their Bigfoot buddy to get ticks off, to clean all the ticks off them.
That's a very good idea.
And then when I found out that their fur is visible in infrared light, their fur glows pink in infrared light. So a Bigfoot would see them at night very easily because they would glow to them if they could see in infrared. So you just start. You get dot diarrhea. Once again, I like to use that word diarrhea because you got to just let your brain just go. What if? Right. Don't try to just connect the dots. You may be totally wrong, but you damn well might be right too.
Mm-hmm.
Because those flying squirrels were landing all over me for a reason.
And that's not normal behavior.
No,
at least not that we'd have observed.
It was like they had already been doing that to some upright hominid in the forest, because that's where I was, and I didn't have a flashlight. Remember now, I'm in the dark in a boreal forest and really far back there, and I'm trying to get footage of wildlife, and I've got flying squirrels landing all over me because if I would have had a flashlight, they would have never landed on me. So I'm out there alone at night with Joe. And he witnessed this, and then I said, well, you just start talking steady. And he did, and they started landing on him. So there's an experiment everybody can do. Just talk soft, kind of in a whisper, friendly mode, and just talk on a regular basis. Talk where you've got northern flying squirrels and see if they'll land all over you. And at one point, I had 20 of them on me. Crawling all over me. Just craziest things. The minute I quit talking, they all just took off. Then I do it again, and it'll land on me.
It's really weird.
Oh,
behavior in
and
animals.
in The Man That Walks the Bears, there is the greatest nighttime IR flying squirrel footage you ever saw. And you wonder how I got it.
That's how.
That's amazing.
Just talking.
I never would have thought of behavior like that, and it very well could be a symbiotic relationship, like you're saying, like they're grooming or getting rid of ticks.
Well, what's the other thing a flying squirrel could do at night? Okay, deer or ravens can give you great aerial reconnaissance. So what if the Bigfoots were ravens? Okay, so the ravens do great daytime aerial reconnaissance. Sorry, ravens don't fly at night. Flying squirrels can leap from tree to tree so quick. Maybe they do aerial reconnaissance for Bigfoots. Why is it that why would their fur glow and be visible with UV light? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And why did I suspect Bigfoots can see in UV? Well, that's because caribou can.
Urine also fluoresces under UV light.
What does?
Urine?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why caribou, because they can spot wolf urine.
Yeah.
Well, Bigfoots would also be able to spot, rodent urine to eat them, toad urine, bug urine, snake urine. I mean, deer urine, whatever they're hunting. The whole thing is there's some connection there. Just something keeps nagging me. There's some goofy connection. And I know it sounds funny, but I'm real interested in these wildlife connections because I've been right before and I've had success.
Man, I'm so glad you've been on tonight. You've given me so much to think about. I mean, some things I've never even considered before.
Right.
Well, I'm hoping that everybody that hears things, it just, gives us all a kick in the butt. I sit up and all I do is think. I sit and think. And then I've had so many life experiences. I've been just lucky enough to live this amazing life where I've been so many places and in such weird circumstances, you know what I mean? Not many people get to hike through the Belize jungle in the middle of the night for 10 days or, go into caves and whatever it's ever gone into. So it's always been television that's allowed, those things to happen.
Get live image of a giant squid that never been done before.
Yeah, it's all television and television. That's why I wanted to get into TV when I was a kid. I just kind of knew that if you want to have the most amazing, adventurous life, get into TV. I instinctively knew that and grew up watching Jacques Cousteau and, shows like that. And
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Yep. Marlon Perkins and Wild America as I got older. And got to actually end up meeting all those guys and hiring Marty Stouffer's crew and working with them. They did Legend Meets Science with me.
Wow.
It was Marty. If you remember that show, Wild America.
Yeah. When you had the opportunity to work with Dr. Jeff Meldrum, his analysis of track morphology is just mind blowing.
It really is. Yeah, he was thinking out of the box on all that.
And because of the things he's identified, he's been able to identify tracks that are legit tracks, and he's also caught a lot of hoax tracks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. First thing I have to always say about Jeff is, one, he is the coolest, nicest person you'll ever meet. He's just so nice. I just love Jeff. Unfortunately,
I'd love to get him on the show.
Oh, yeah. Other than the fact that, he's so darn busy. And we are working with Jeff. Right. I'm working with Jeff on Legend Meets Science too. Awesome. Jeff is pretty much helping me with every category. We talk through each category. And we just talk. And he's just got such great broad knowledge on so many things. And he's got his own. And I know I've helped Jeff come up with some new things to think about. And Jeff's given me new things to think about. We work well together. And he's going to be writing a new Legend Meets Science book. He's already working on it. Just so you guys know, that's coming too. And that's exciting. I mean, that's to me historical. The first book he did was, for anybody that doesn't have it, they need to get it.
I think that one's on my to get list for my library. I'm always acquiring new books. I had a question, and I don't know if you've worked with him or not, but Josh Gates, when he went to Nepal, got a track, and it was an amazing track. What did you think of that?
I have not seen that show. They took away my travel channel off my cable network, just out of the blue, you know. And it was also weird because I just crossed paths with Josh. I was speaking in Vegas at this convention. He was there. He was just a couple of booths down from me. And I never had an opportunity to go down and introduce myself and, you know, shoot the crap or ask to take him out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't answer that question. I have not seen it. Don't know anything about it.
Well, if you get a chance to see it,
I will.
It's I think it's one of the Expedition Unknowns, I think.
Yep.
He went to Nepal, and they cast this really amazing track, and it's the morphology of the track is pretty astounding. And he took it to Jeff, Dr. Meldrum.
What did Meldrum think?
Meldrum was pretty astounded by the track. He said, considering where you found this and the way this track is set up, I think you've got a really good solid cast.
Oh, very cool.
But I'm just wondering if you had been part of that, because I know your reach in television is shockingly huge.
Well, I did a big show in Nepal too, and a 2-hour special, and we just weren't lucky enough to see tracks. Mm-hmm. But maybe we were to see them in the snow at one point, but they were so far away, there was no way to get to them.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's an interesting area. It's a real interesting area because I know there's been some. I'm aware of some secret scientific research that's gone on there, where they've been finding these nests, and there's been some serious scientists examining these nests on a regular basis. Yeah,
there were a couple of hunters I spoke to in Paducah, Kentucky, that found nests like that in LBL.
I hope to God they photographed them.
They said they did, but they didn't have the photos with them when I was talking to them, because I was in LBL for 5 days, and I talked to a lot of people. And the really weird thing is the people that lived in Grand Rivers just outside LBL wanted nothing to do with the topic of either Bigfoot or Dogman. But when I went to Paducah, Kentucky, I brought the subject up at a restaurant, talking to a guy at another table, and he was like calling other people over. He's like, "Hey, this guy's into this subject. You guys need to hear what these guys have to say." And there were a couple of guys who were deer hunting in central LBL, and they said when they went out to set up an area to hunt, they found an area with like 9 of these big nests.
Gosh, yeah, that's these ground nests are real interesting. Super interesting. I saw photos recently of another site that's got some good ground nests. But once again, material has to be collected, hopefully in the future, to be able to do maybe environmental DNA on it. So would you guys mind if I go heat up my coffee?
Sure, not at all. Myself.
I can go as long as you guys want to.
Oh, we're having a great time. So we'll go as long as you want to stick around.
I gotta heat up
I'm actually going to the head. Give me a minute.
There we go. It's intermission time. Perfect.
I'll play the weird music.
There you go.
There you go.
Go ahead, Doug. I've got a commercial I can play. Well, folks, since everybody's taking a quick pause, I will bore you with a commercial for promoting my books. So hopefully you guys will check that out if I can find the right one. I know I've got it somewhere. I think this is it.
From the mind of author D.A. Roberts. Cryptids, Lakeview Man, Apex Predator, Codename Wild Hunt. Zombies, the Ragnarok Rising Saga. Science fiction and fantasy, Lost Legion. Find them all at daroberts.net or amazon.com.
Well, I thought I would take a moment to play that. Those guys aren't back yet, so we'll just continue to talk about some of the other things. I'm getting a lot of great comments tonight in the chair in the chat. Meg Mills has a interesting comment. She said the Cherokee used screech owls to see how warfare would go. Also, owl calls were used by scouts for communicating at night. There's been a lot of accounts of people saying that Bigfoot have mimicked owl calls, and number of sightings, accounts of that. And in fact, sometimes it's been described as the 400-pound owl call because it sounds much too large for a wolf, for an owl. If I could continue. Blues and G music. There you go. I remember that commercial. Let's all go to the lobby. Steve H., thank you, sir. Appreciate the comment on the books. Megan and Papa Bear are correct. Naoma is awesome. She did a great job on that commercial. Ivy Ray had a question. She says, when will be my next book release? Well, I'm currently working on Apex Predator 5. It's called Dark Moon. It's actually set in the LBL area, and I'm hoping to have it in edits in the next couple of weeks. It's been one of those ones that I've had some issues with it. I wasn't feeling good for a few days, and I kind of lost my place on the book. But I've got the momentum back now, and I'm hoping to have it finished in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully I'll have some release information, like I said, in the next few weeks. It'll depend on how quickly we get through edits. Hey, Anthony, welcome back, brother. Can't hear you, dude. There we go.
I'm back too.
Just in time. I think I was boring everybody by myself, so I'm glad you guys are back.
Yeah, it gets old. And you have to juggle balls for everybody or whatever you're doing, talking.
I played a commercial and we talked a little bit, and I answered a couple of quick questions.
All I know is I've got a really good cup of Starbucks coffee here.
Oh yeah, I might have to slip out here shortly and get a refill myself. I've got
we always
pot
do.
I've got a pot of Black Rifle Company's Tactisquatch coffee on.
Yep. So I do this thing every single night. It's every night. I work until the sun comes up, then I'll go take a nap and then get up. And I always think I shouldn't do that. Tomorrow I won't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do. There's just so many things to learn and do and get done.
Right.
It's just...
I've got a few people that are always sending me links to podcasts, to episodes that they think I should check out, they're really great episodes, but there just aren't enough hours of the day for me to write and plan shows and watch podcasts. So I will watch spot ones here and there if one really catches my eye, but I don't get to watch near as many as I used to. When I was an overnight patrol officer, that's what I did from basically midnight to 6 a.m. was listen to podcasts. Because there's nothing going on.
Yeah, I can imagine things get slow. And yeah, it's one thing about I used to do ride-alongs with the local police, and just got to be friends with all the police here in town, and they'd stop and pick me up, and we'd just go on ride-alongs. And when there was action, it was not good, but a lot of dead time. But boy, when police are needed, they're needed bad and now.
Yeah, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's a dangerous job. It's a dangerous job. I wouldn't want to do it. Let's put it that way.
Well, there are parts of me that very much miss it. But my wife does not miss getting those phone calls in the middle of the night, because in my career, it happened about 3 times where she got a phone call where she needed to get to the ER because I was in there.
Crazy. So what we were talking about?
We were talking about symbiosis between different animals. And I've watched a lot of videos on ravens and crows that pick ticks off of all kinds of animals.
Yeah.
So it's only logical to assume they would probably have a similar relationship with Bigfoot type creatures. And we know they do it with wolves.
I mean, how long would it take a Bigfoot to realize that ravens are going to be heading towards a dying deer that's dying in the woods? It's stuck in the snow. That's, it's March and the snow's 3-4 feet deep and there's a deer that's ready to die. They're going to be circling around. How long would it, how big of a stretch is it to think a Bigfoot's going to go, food?
Well, the ravens and crows were known as battlefield birds. because they would be attracted
Right.
to the smell of death.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
It's true, but
I mean, they even have like they have
Well,
like that one
there's so
relationship with somebody else.
There's so much respect between wolves and ravens. The ravens can pull their tails. They tease the wolves. Excuse me. You witness this stuff, and then you think, well, yeah, the wolves open up the carcass. The wolves will actually let the ravens feed first. They'll back off and let the ravens, because they owe the raven so much in finding these decomposed deer, these deer that have just died, or a deer that's...
Ravens are going to go for the squishy bits anyway. They're going to get eyes and...
Yeah, right, exactly. But it's real interesting to see it firsthand, and I have witnessed it. You know, the firsthand observations of ravens and wolves at a kill.
Ravens are very intelligent.
Yeah.
A few months ago, actually, it was last summer, I started noticing that every once in a while I would find like shiny rocks in right next to my front porch.
Okay.
And I was like, where are these coming from? And then I'd come out and there'd be more. So I started picking them up and taking them in the house. I've got a jar of them somewhere over here in my office. And they just kept showing up. And I couldn't figure out where they were coming from.
Right.
And so I showed them all to my son, my youngest son. I'm like, hey, do you any idea where these shiny rocks keep coming from? He just starts laughing. I'm like, what? He goes, it's the ravens. I'm like, what do you mean it's the ravens? He goes, I go out every morning and put bread out for them. And apparently they're bringing us shiny rocks now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So pretty much, you know, every other day or so, I'll go outside and find a shiny rock outside.
Yeah, yeah. So the gifting behavior of a Bigfoot certainly isn't, you know, it's just not, to me, abnormal.
Yeah.
It's not abnormal at all. And you hear about that and you see it, and we're learning so much because of YouTube and TikTok and you know, just short videos. We're learning more and more about animal behavior because we can share it instantly, you know, with the whole world. Someone records a weird video of some weird animal behavior, they throw it on TikTok nowadays, and it may be behavior that's never been seen before, but we all get to enjoy it. And dog behavior, and how loving, you know, certain animals are, and their intelligence. And so we're all learning more and more about animals in this era that we're in because of the internet.
We've got an observed behavior in our dog. We'll let him out in the backyard, and he has learned that if he comes up and knocks on the back door, he'll use his head, tap on the door. We come let him in. Yeah. So he actually knocks to be let in now. Does it all the time.
Yeah. Well, you need to document it and share it, because
I need to start recording it anytime he goes outside, because he does it every time. You'll just hear bang, bang, bang on the back door, and Harley's ready to come in.
That's fascinating. Those are the things that TikTok is good for. I don't think it's so great if somebody's up there, you know, dancing around. But when they put the animal stuff on there, and then eventually if you just watch that stuff, then generally it only feeds you that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I just get tons of animal behavior videos, and it's, you know, wild animals and domestic. It's all interesting to me.
Yeah. Me too. I love watching stuff like that, and that's how I ended up watching the videos of crows and ravens picking ticks off of animals. Something I was interested in and popped up, and I was like, oh, well, let's watch this.
Yeah, we live in an amazing age now where we can. I don't know if you're old enough to remember pre-internet days.
Oh yeah, I was born in 1970, so yeah, I'm right there with you.
Right there, and so the World Book Encyclopedia.
I did many a book report reading those.
Yeah, that's what you had to go to. You had to go get on your belly and start pulling world books out of the bottom bookshelf or wherever they were. And nowadays, so I appreciate the internet. It's insane.
It's amazing some of the things you can find too that you never would have thought you'd find. I know for an example of animal behavior that they have noticed in chimps and bonobos and gorillas a certain amount of tool use. Do you think Bigfoot are tool users?
Yeah, rocks, sticks, but I don't think it goes beyond that.
In their environment, they don't really need it. They've got the strength to break open a tree if they want to get something out of the center of it.
It's almost as if, you know, God put them here to avoid all technology. and to just be pure. I definitely think of them as a pure creature. Smart, but pure. Pure in every way. They're just obviously consciously. Generally, I don't hear about stories like, "Oh, it stole my shovel." Yeah, and we saw it shoveling using the shovel to dig up gopher mounds. No, we generally don't hear any stories of tool use. I don't think they are. No, I don't think so. Dude, it's too many. Obviously, they could steal all the tools they'd ever want.
Very true, especially in logging areas. But there is stories of them like damaging equipment in logging camps. But it could just be simply they didn't want them in their environment cutting down trees either.
Right.
I don't think any of us would be very happy if somebody walked in our living room and started breaking up our furniture.
And, we have noticed, I've noticed even on a personal level, they'll pick something up and carry it a short distance and then do something to let you know they did that. Mm-hmm. But they don't take it. They'll leave it. They'll even pick up an audio recorder and carry it off 20 feet. But they'll set it standing upright in the middle of the trail for you. So you kind of know, well, it probably wasn't a raccoon that did that.
Right. So what do you think about the missing 411 cases?
Oof, scary. I know David very well. I've known David for 25 years. Back when he was doing Bigfoot investigation stuff. And
I would love for you to make an introduction. I'd like to meet him.
David is not the guy that you want to hang out if you want a good night's sleep or if you're planning on a hike the next day.
Well, him and I could probably exchange stories then, because I could tell a few nightmare stories myself.
I did a demo tape with him on a missing 411 series, and we still may end up doing something with that show. I think it still would be a great show. I think it would save a lot of lives. I think
it'd be great. It'd be a great show to watch.
David obviously had a huge setback losing his son, Ben, who I had dinner with once. But yeah, it's one of those mysteries that we won't know the answer because the people that go missing
aren't around to tell us.
Dead men tell no tales. So we don't know. I doubt they're responsible for all of them.
Oh, I don't think so either.
I very much doubt that they haven't done any of it.
I think there is a certain amount of it that is cryptid related.
There has to be.
One of the earliest recorded examples of a story that detailed a Bigfoot attack was Teddy Roosevelt's encounter story in the wilderness.
The Bauman story, yeah.
Considering the level of detail and how much information Roosevelt had, I have the theory that Bauman was actually Roosevelt.
It was him, yeah. Yeah, I thought about that.
Before his political career, he didn't want...
He just didn't want to be attached to it.
Right. So then we've got a president who knows about cryptids. He knows their violent tendencies. Yep. Flash forward, he becomes president of the United States. What's the first thing? One of the first things he does?
Set aside national parks. Yeah.
Created the national parks.
And what motivated
Anthony, we can't see you, brother. We can hear you.
Oh, and how's it? Can you hear me now? Is it delayed still?
I can hear you. Hear you fine.
Yeah, it's the weather. Really.
If anybody's still with us, they're not here. They're not here with us to look at us.
That's a fact.
And they don't want to look at me.
I always say I have a face for radio.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not touching any of those comments. Anybody.
Well, you're family now, so now you can talk whatever you want. I mean, not like that, but I mean,
I do like to play pranks.
Mm-hmm.
But and then sometimes I punch my co-host all the time. I love teasing.
Yeah, we joke a lot on here, man. We did, Yeah, if you can't come on.
Exactly.
Right. You got to have a sense of humor no matter what you do in life.
Yeah, the Teddy Roosevelt thing is interesting. I did a reenactment. I did a really cool reenactment on that.
Of the Bauman
story, yeah. It's in Giganto, the real King Kong show I did.
Really? I've got to go back.
This guy, I got this actor from North Dakota, and I'd heard this guy. You cannot tell him from Teddy. It's like he's exact in every way, the way he talks.
Oh, that's
looks.
fantastic.
And I brought him over, and I spent the day with him before we shot this reenactment. And I shot it personally. I was the camera guy and everything. And God, he was it was like hanging out with Teddy Roosevelt all day. He was a historian. He knew. Oh, you got to watch it. Giganto.
I'm definitely going to watch it. Yep. I'll see if I can locate that and watch that with the wife later tonight, because we always watch something after a show.
Yep. Yeah, the Teddy Roosevelt thing was fun.
So you're on board with the theory that
sure,
Bauman was
absolutely.
actually Teddy.
Oh God, yes.
I've been saying that for a long time.
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't put my name on it, especially if I had political aspirations.
Of course. You're just gonna
I'm primarily a hillbilly from the sticks of Missouri. I know people that live in the backwoods, and I know pulling that level of detail out of one of them is like pulling teeth.
Exactly.
So I the first time I read the Bauman incident, I'm like, this has got to be Teddy. This has got to be him, because he just has so much detail.
Well, you'll never be able to prove it, but no. I think it's good brain diarrhea.
Mm-hmm. That's something we should ask your buddy. Maybe he could channel Teddy for us, and he could answer that for us.
I stayed in touch with him for a while, because he was like the coolest guy to ever hang out with, because he was Teddy Roosevelt on every level.
That's fantastic. I'd like to meet him.
Yeah, just go ahead and look at that reenactment. He's not acting. He is Teddy Roosevelt.
I would love to check that out. I'm going to be watching that. Another guy that I would love to have gotten a chance to talk to is when Val Kilmer was doing the in-character Mark Twain presentations before the issues with his throat.
Right.
It never came to my area. I never got to see it, but I so badly wanted to see him do Twain.
Yeah, I would think he would have really done good, but God, I wish I could think of this guy's name that did Teddy. But when he talked about Alice, his wife, it was Alice.
That's awesome.
You know, it's crazy. The guy lived it.
So going back to the missing 411 cases, when you start looking at some of those clusters, something that we discussed on the show a few times, and I'll see if I still have the picture. Here we go. I'll bring the graphic up here in just a second. As one of the things we've noticed is the cluster maps line up almost perfectly with the maps of major cave systems. Specifically, the Mammoth Cave network.
I wish this map would be redone by some GIS people for David, because with all the flags, the little.
Right.
But it does match up, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But you got to also remember, though, caves generally in the U.S. are limestone or karst. Well, generally you can't carve karst out without a lot of rainfall.
Mm-hmm.
So, and generally Bigfoots are known as the water ape. They ain't going far from water. They need 40 inches of rain or more or whatever to really be abundant. And so sometimes you get these things that are like karst, heavy rain, missing people. Well, yeah, but then again, you then think, but there's no missing people much going missing in the desert, where things are open. But then you think, well, if you're going missing in the damn desert, you're a moron, because how can you get so? My brain just keeps going, so I don't know what to think of the coincidence of the caves. I've never been one to think Bigfoots are using caves other than maybe eating a bat or two. I don't think they're living in them. I personally don't. There may be some that are travel routes, maybe. But I've just never been the cave Bigfoot guy.
Yeah.
So I just kind of blank over when I think about caves and Bigfoot.
The missing 411 cases that always intrigue me the most are the ones when they brought in tracking dogs and they refused to track.
Right. There's something weird going on there.
Yeah, that is not normal behavior.
It would be if you were being carried off by a creature, if you were lifted off your feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they smell something they don't want any part of. But being in law enforcement, I've worked with tracking dogs, and those dogs live for the track.
Right,
they love it,
and they can pick up an air track if it's pretty fresh. You could put a person in a car and drive in a busy city and drive around, and a good tracking dog can follow the path of the car, even with the windows rolled up. But
even
weeks later, go ahead, Anthony.
I'm sorry. Even when I was out, like when we go hunting, we used to use dogs with track collars on them. They come up missing and their necks broken. And that was the weird thing. What's going to break a dog's neck? I mean, really,
Bigfoot.
Exactly. And that's what we would find. We would find, the dogs, either their necks broken or the collars taken off the dog and the dog's gone. They would find the collar off the dog and the body hundreds of yards away, just destroyed, ripped to pieces. So, I mean, it's a weird subject, man. It's crazy.
It is. There's just so many things that happen that are amazingly coincidental that they're just too coincidental to be coincidences.
Right.
So the missing people, but what I was going to say, Anthony, was if you were out hiking and a Bigfoot grabbed you and lifted you up on his shoulders and carried you off, or broke your neck and carried you off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you leave much of a scent trail?
Mm-hmm.
The only scent trail would be the Bigfoot, not the human.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because dogs go fuels.
Yeah. Most dogs will also, tracking dogs especially, will have one of two reactions to a big predator. Some dogs will go after a bear, and other dogs are like, "Oh no, I'm not got nothing to do with that."
Yeah, exactly. My buddy had a dog that was just fearless. I mean, it was Cocker Spaniel, and it would track freaking bears, no problem, moose, no problem, get right up to them. And other animals won't have anything to do with them. But so I got a question then for you, DA. If a Bigfoot carried off a human off the ground, how long would that scent trail be there for a tracking dog of the human if he was carried?
If it's just an airborne scent, probably not long.
I wouldn't think long.
The longer you go, the less likely they're going to be able to get the scent. But if that scent is mingled with the scent of something big like a Bigfoot, tracking dog's going to put the brakes on. Not doing it.
We all have heard so many stories where dogs just pee themselves, or they cower, they tuck their tail under, they'll crawl under the truck or the car. And I just heard a story last week from a guy in Texas. Same damn thing. I mean, this guy was telling me, I don't have permission to relay the stories, but some of the stories I heard are off the charts. Just off the charts, and they're having problems at their home.
We've lost your video feed, sir.
Oh. There we go.
There we go.
I wasn't even looking. I was looking at you. And so people are just so people are so hassled in certain homesteads by these things, where they're banging on their house and throwing rocks at the house, throwing, leaving things, skulls, rabbits with the head ripped off at the doorstep. And I talked to so many people that have homesteads out in the, in the country that are like, they just want answers. What do I do? We never had this problem, and all of a sudden, bam, we're just being, we're scared to death.
Yeah. Well, that's the question I've had from a few people. They didn't want their account publicized. They didn't want any, want to make a big spectacle of it. All they wanted to know was how to make it stop. And the best advice I can give them is dogs and lights.
Yeah, lights and dogs. Yeah, there you go. It's very rare where any of these people that are being hassled want anything to do with attracting them. Mm-hmm. They just want their life back. They want their home to be their safe,
I've noticed this in Missouri. I don't know if it would hold true anywhere else, but once in a while, if I go out, like driving back gravel roads, I'll stop and talk to people if I see somebody in their yard. The places I get the best hits are the houses that have the most lights. Yeah. Most people out in the country, if they've got like one security light in their yard, they haven't seen nothing. But you've got a guy with 6 outdoor motion sensors around his house. yeah, he's had something coming up to the house. So, and I've had the best luck just stopping and talking to people. I'm like, hey, I just noticed you had all the security lights.
Right.
What has something been happening? You've been having a lot of animal activity? And they'd be like, oh, if you only knew. I'm like, well, I'd love to hear the story. And I've gotten some great firsthand stories by people that didn't want to go on record, but like, yeah, we had something hitting the side of the house. We had, livestock going missing. We had feed from the barn taken. And he said, once we put the lights up, it stopped happening.
Yeah. I'm working with a guy right now that is literally very afraid. He's afraid to even go to his own cabin anymore. And once again, nothing ever happened up until recently. They started logging across the river adjacent to his property. And they started doing clear cutting. And all of a sudden, it's like they blamed him, attacking his cabin with sometimes 80, 90 rocks.
Wow.
And he's so far out in the sticks. He's got a generator.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll leave my generator on running all night now, and I won't stay there alone anymore ever. And I'll have the generator going and a Disney movie playing on my VCR. It's the only way I can sleep. And people really get afraid, because they don't know what they're dealing with. They have no idea.
And that's something that I think has been a disservice, because I believe the government's known about these things for a long time. I truly do. And I think that's where we're having a disservice to people, because people should know what the potential dangers are. People should know what they could potentially run into. And we're starting to see a little bit of that change. I know the Ohio Department of Natural Resources put out a series of what to do if Bigfoot videos.
Isn't that amazing?
And when I first heard they put those out, I thought, well, this is going to be tongue in cheek. And then I watched them. I'm like, oh wow, they're straight up serious.
No, and they're letting them do it, and that's going to catch on. There's other departments that are going to come forward.
And then in the state of Oklahoma put I think it was a $3 million bounty on the capture of one alive.
Right.
When state governments are taking an official notice and saying, hey, this is the thing, there are places like in Washington State where they've made it illegal to kill one.
Yeah.
And I'm on board with that. I would never try to shoot one unless Florida did. I would never shoot one unless it was to defend my life or someone else's. I'm not an advocate of killing one of these things.
No.
I think
I'd kill one in a heartbeat if it's attacking me or my family. But other than that, no way.
Right. I think we've progressed enough scientifically where we don't need to kill something to prove its existence.
Right.
Hell, there was a new species of whale found, within the last 5 years, and they didn't kill one and drag it in. They just documented it with a camera.
At some point, a body will be found. It'll be hit by an electric Tesla truck that made no noise. Came around a corner, bam, it's going to happen. I think I remember Newsweek interviewed me. Excuse me, losing my voice. Newsweek interviewed me about how do you think the Bigfoot mystery is going to come to an end? And I said, Tesla. It's going to be an electric car. It's going to smack into one, or an electric semi truck.
It's not going to hear it coming and bang.
Nope, bam. That was my prediction. So we'll see if it comes true.
Do you think forest fires in areas increase or change the activity? Because I know there's several forest fires right now running in Tennessee and North Carolina, Eastern Kentucky. There are several forest fires that are in effect right now. I would assume it would cause changes in behavior. Somebody
needs to take the time to say, okay, here we have a forest fire in Canada. It's like this whole area is burning. Did we have sightings south? Because these animals are going to continue to move away from the fire. Mm-hmm. Did we have more sightings in a southerly direction? I think there's probably some scientific data waiting for us to get right now. But someone's got to take the time to get it.
Right. And I'm really happy that people like yourself and Dr. Meldrum, and there's a lot of people that I could name, but have brought this subject more into the mainstream, because it shows like MonsterQuest and Finding Bigfoot and Expedition Sasquatch and Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates. It shows like that have made this topic more mainstream, and people are less stigmatized, I think is the word I'm looking for, about coming forward with their sightings. And I think it's been very beneficial.
At some point, the most skeptical people who have ignored this topic, you'll know we've made progress when they tell you, "Oh, I knew it all along. They were real." That's going to be something we're hopefully live long enough.
DA said all the time.
Yeah,
I knew it all along. I knew they were real.
I often make the joke like the old British Museum, like they were saying, "Oh, we believe mountain gorillas." Like, "Oh no, those couldn't possibly exist." And then somebody drags one in,
Right.
like, "Oh yes, I saw it first. I get to name it."
Yeah. It's nothing ever changes in history, you know. Accepting new ideas is always a battle. It's constantly a battle. It's never going to end, the battle. And it's up to us to just, remain as scientific as we can. We need far more scientific citizens that can start collecting. Don't just do gifting. Put a piece of Velcro on that thing that you're exchanging. And we get it back and we have some hair snagged into it. Do things.
Try something new. Questioning the world around us is how most scientific methods have been.
Yeah.
Most scientific breakthroughs have happened.
But we really need more, just amateur citizen scientists. I've always tried to be that, but it doesn't mean that everybody's going to have progress. Just working at it, though, is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. I agree with the state of Oklahoma, though. They specified alive. I would hate to see somebody, just bag one and bring it in just because they wanted to prove something. And again, if these, when these creatures are proven to exist, I don't really think they need our protection so much. They've been doing fine without us. They just need our respect and not have people try to strap one to the hood of the pickup truck and drive it through town.
I mean, I would be highly for, a proper darting, tranquilizing temporarily, and just, getting blood samples, collecting as much data as we can.
Catch and release.
Yeah, catch and release, and don't harm it. That's how we learned so much about bears. Unfortunately, is giving them a dose of ketamine.
That's got to be a weird experience. You're just walking through town and you're like, oh, you drop and you wake up with you're dizzy. You've got an ear tag and a collar on. Like, what the heck, man?
Could happen. It could happen. I mean, I'm not going to say I've never brought dart guns.
I've never thought about using a dart gun because I would be afraid I would get the dosage wrong and just have this stoned out of his gourd, pissed off Bigfoot.
I'm not going to admit that we didn't practice on cows.
That's a good body mass. Cows or moose would be in the same weight category.
I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to practice on cows.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think the best footage that I've seen, and DA will contest to it, is Mark Zasky, Crypto Reality. Okay, his footage,
great footage,
is out of this world.
I've not seen any of it.
If you get a chance to check out the Crypto Reality,
you need to look at it.
Really good footage.
Well, here's what I do when I look at footage. I'm happy to look at footage for people. I will comment on it if my comments are kept private. Only because I don't want to be known for debunking or endorsing
right
footage unless it's really amazing. Then I will. If I'm 100%, then I would. But you just, you don't know. But send me a link. I'd love to look. I'm not even aware of it. Or maybe I am, and I just I'm not connecting it with the name. I might have already debunked it, already endorsed it. The footage that I think
Crypto Reality.
The footage I think is the most amazing of modern times is the skunk ape in your neck of the woods, Anthony, ripping cypress bark. Have you ever tried to rip cypress bark?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
No, it ain't happening.
No, I know exactly. I know we're talking about exactly.
Yeah.
It happened from Mayaca Park, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know where it happened. I can't remember, but it was the footage was entitled, I Think I Saw a Skunk Ape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it
I'll look for that footage.
It's tearing. I mean, not only you have the audio is perfect throughout because that's one of the things I look for. If something gets 2 red flags, I'm done. There's no red flags in there. That is a real animal. It could be a bear. It's possible. Right. It's definitely a real animal, and it's definitely ripping that bark off. Or opening the trunk of that rotten cypress tree. But and it stands up in a very unusual way. Yeah, it's called that. Okay, that one I will publicly say I think there's something to that footage.
I believe that's or Mayaca Park over here. Mayaca is in Sebring, Florida.
Okay.
I believe so. And you got the Tampa area where I think that was filmed at. I'm not sure. So the guy was kayaking. He was in a kayak when he got footage.
No, he wasn't. I don't think he was. There's 2 in the swamp. There's 2. There's one where a guy's kayaking. That one's also really amazing, where it throws something. The one I'm talking about, where it's down on its knees or crouched, and it's tearing open this cypress knee, and it's just you can hear the splinters. And
that's Mayaca. That's Mayaca.
Okay, so you're filming it from the back. That is, I will say this without 100%. That is a real animal. I'm not 99. It's 100%. I'm not going to tell you how I know. It's 100% a real animal. Is it a bear or a Bigfoot? It's one or the other. I won't be 100% sure, but it looks like a Bigfoot because it stands
the way it stands straight up.
I mean, I can see muscle tone. There's a lot of really good things about that footage. It's just a shame that guy just threw it up on YouTube. It's like, really? Not the thing to do. Dumb.
Right.
Dumb. You need to get that original footage to somebody like me who can get it so I can do forensics on it. Other people can do forensics on it. And it can get presented properly by vetted scientists.
Absolutely.
Right.
Not this. Let's throw it up on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do that.
Look at this.
Don't do that. You've already discredited yourself. Halfway. But that and the Memorial Day footage, I know is real. The Freeman footage, I knew Paul Freeman really well. I spotted things in that footage he had never seen. I surprised him on numerous occasions with, the juvenile. He didn't know that was there. I'm not saying Paul never exaggerated or did things to try to convince more people, but I can just tell you that footage is the real deal. There's not many of them. There's one in Russia that leaps, and it's really interesting. And
I've seen that.
It's super interesting, but I don't know any more than it's not CGI that I can tell. And it's not a guy in a suit, which is obvious. So what is it?
Right.
Could even be a Dogman type thing. Did you ever see that, DA?
No, I haven't seen that video.
Oh yeah. I'll have to get that to you if you haven't seen that.
I'd love to see it.
The shoulders on this thing and the muscles when it leaps are absolutely phenomenal. And it grabs a tree and propels itself with a tree trunk, and it walks across the trail.
I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence about certain other videos that are out there which I'm not going to mention any names. We'll put it like that. Certain close-up video and pictures of certain ones.
I don't buy into any of that crap. It's not.
Exactly.
It doesn't even pass my 2-second rule. Within 2 seconds, I know it's not real.
Yeah.
You know a real animal when you look at
Yeah,
it.
I think you know what I mean. Yeah.
Do you think, DA, that I could show you a guy in a bear suit? And you would know in under 2 seconds that was a guy in a suit?
Right.
or a fake owl or a mechanical owl or a CGI owl or whatever. It's come on, guys.
Right.
If you get that same, I mean, if you can really feel honestly that a CGI or a real animal can be duplicated by CGI, you are dead wrong. There's no way. We don't have that technology yet.
No,
Disney can't even do
movies.
No, they.
Yeah, you look at them, you're like, oh, like the Jack London novel that they did with Harrison Ford, Call of the Wild, the CGI dog, and that was so bad.
That's so bad. They just, yeah, you can put gravity markers on every hair. Okay, big deal. It still looks like gravity markers on hair.
My wife and I discovered there was a show. It was a movie that I really liked back when we had our old crappy TV, but now we've got a 4K TV, and I watched it again the other night, and I was like, oh, these effects are terrible.
It's, yeah, I literally, almost every case, a few seconds.
Yeah.
You look at the Patterson footage, it's that quick. You're looking at a real animal.
Yeah. You can tell by the gait, the way the muscles move.
It's a million things that we all possess, the senses.
Well, and then you look at some of the enhancements that M.K. Davis did. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Some of the things he's brought out of that video, you look at those, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
There's no way this is a guy in a suit.
Right. No, it's not. I mean, it's got all the, I don't know if you saw the new enhanced stuff. And I've been on the phone with both him and Jeff, the guy that did the latest enhancement. And we're planning on working together on Legend Meet Science too, because there's far more enhancements that can be done.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And that ran, and the proof is out there on History Channel recently. I don't know if you've seen it.
I don't know if I've seen that one. I don't think we've got the History Channel on our setup.
There you go.
I had to add Discovery Plus to catch some of the other channels, but we got that, it came with 35 other channels I don't watch. I wish you could just pick and choose.
Right.
It's a problem. It is a problem. Yeah. I've got a ton of sports networks. I don't watch any sports. I wouldn't waste 1 second watching somebody play baseball, because life's too short for me to watch some guy play baseball. I'll play baseball with you anytime, but I'm not going to watch somebody do it.
Right.
I love watching documentaries, especially historical documentaries. Yeah. I watch stuff all the time, and my wife gets mad at me because when I start pointing out inaccuracies in a TV show.
Yeah, it's just there's so many things you can waste your time on.
We lost Anthony again. His internet's really spotty because of the storms.
It's pretty bad. Well, maybe we should wind this up. I haven't eaten all day.
Oh, well, I hate to keep you from that.
I haven't slept all day.
Wow.
So why don't we just plan on let's do this again. It was a fascinating conversation.
I would love to have you back.
You're amazing, DA, really.
Doug, you are awesome. I would put you in the top 2 guests we've ever had on the show.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I'd probably put you up there. You and probably Ron Moorhead are my 2 favorite guests I've ever had on the show.
Yeah, I got to pick.
I learned so much with both of you.
I got to pick Ron Moorhead up at the airport last summer.
Ron's an awesome guy.
And spend the whole day with him, and he's such a delightful guy. Just the coolest guy ever. And I had met Ron before at Willow Creek and spent a little time with him and Al Berry, but to spend the whole day with them and hang out with him every day was really a joy. Smart guy.
I will definitely want to have you back on the show, Doug.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's been such a great time.
Anytime. We haven't really even nicked the surface.
Yeah, we're just getting into the juicy bits.
Yeah.
We are at the 3-hour mark. This is a good place to go ahead and start wrapping things up. Doug, thank you so much for coming on.
You.
I'm a huge fan of your work. You've given me so much to think about tonight. I mean, I'm connecting dots I didn't even know were connectable. I really want to look into some of these things. I want to try a few of these in the next outing we go. There's just so much that I enjoy getting to learn when I talk to people like you with so much experience in the field. And I'm honored and so grateful that I got the chance to have you on the show.
Well, I'm honored to be on it, so I appreciate it. Let's just chit chat some more.
All right, absolutely. We'll set up a date and get you back sometime in the very near future.
Okay, sounds great.
And again, I appreciate you coming on, everybody. I appreciate everybody in the group chat tonight. We've had some great comments and questions come out of the chat. You guys are absolutely awesome. I posted the link to Doug's Untold AM on YouTube in the chat earlier. Check out MonsterQuest if you haven't watched it. If you haven't watched it, you've missed out. In fact, I'm probably going to watch a couple episodes tonight before I go to sleep. But check out all of Doug's work. It's just amazing. Such a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you coming on the show so much. And everybody had great questions tonight. We had some great comments. Everything stayed civil in the chat, which is fantastic. And I thank every one of you guys for being here. Doug, and thank Steve for being here. Hope he's enjoying his movie. And
thank you, Anthony.
No, man, thank you. Thank you, man, for coming. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to send you a roll of tinfoil so you can get that damn internet working more.
It's the weather.
Don't laugh. It works. It works.
It's the weather here. The weather is like crazy, and it always happens every time I'm on with him. Something will go after raccoon, and that's on the show. Or it's just chaos. It's chaos. Yeah. You know? But I do appreciate you coming, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good meeting you.
And really,
when we had Fred Roll on from Alaska, he said his internet was brought in by Dog Sled Team.
Yeah.
Adios, guys. Adios. I'm out of here.
All right, thank you, Doug. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you go check out all of Doug's work. Check out MonsterQuest. Such a great show. Want to thank you guys for being here tonight. We've had a wonderful time. We will be doing this again this coming Wednesday night when we have who's on Wednesday?
Aha!
I completely lost my train of thought.
I know, because we got so many lined up.
Right. Wednesday night will be. Just let me check. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got a lot of people lined up. I can't even keep track until I look at the calendar. Oh, God, where is it? Oh.
We will have Jason Kinsey on, who's a wildlife photographer and Bigfoot explorer. He's done a lot of documentaries. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. We're going to have a great night with Jason on the show. And, again, thank you guys so much for being on. Doug, thank you for being on. We are going to have him back sometime very soon.
Yeah,
Anthony,
man, that was
brother,
good.
Thank you for all your help. This was a fantastic show.
I figured you would like Anthony. That, yeah.
I want to thank Anthony for this one because he got this one for us. And he's been getting some interesting names. So
I got some other players. I got some other players involved. I might have some celebrities. Not to mention who. Some, like maybe country singers and TV stars that have accounts that they run into Bigfoot. I got my feelers out. So,
watch for those announcements hopefully coming soon.
So far I've been lucky with getting guests that been pretty good and coming on the show and talking to us and having a good time.
Doug's an amazing guest. I
I knew.
Wait to have him back. Again, check out all his stuff out at MonsterQuest. If you are interested in checking out my books, you can find all of my books at daroberts.net. If you want to be a part of the channel, you can join the channel here by down at the bottom, right down at the bottom of your screen on YouTube. There's a little join button next to the subscribe button, and you can get access to exclusive video content that is not available anywhere else. Also, if you want to become a part of the DA universe, you can join the Patreon community over at patreon.com/DARobertsAuthor, and you can help shape the future of the books. You'll have a lot of input on different levels. So I hope you guys will check that out. And hope you guys will join us on Wednesday night. And again, thank you guys so much for being here. It's been a great show. And we will see you guys on Wednesday night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us tonight on DAX Machina. If you ever have an encounter of your own that you wish to discuss, contact us at daroberts@daroberts.net. You can remain completely anonymous if you wish. Pull your covers up tight and keep a nightlight burning bright. Oh, and did you forget to lock your doors?